I suppose we'll just start with the best damn intro in the business. Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live, episode 118. As usual, if you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. Shoot it on over to Discord to the distinguished Nathan Oakley, MC of Ceremonies. Nathan Oakley, sir.
Good evening. Good to be here. It's been a few weeks.
Yes, sir.
You share the show?
Yes, sir.
It'd be good to get some decent audience figures, given that we haven't been around for a little bit of time. Or is it just me? Was I off for a couple of shows that you had that I wasn't in on?
Yeah, it was just you.
Sickness or something?
Yes, it was just you.
Oh, well, it's good to be back. Obviously, there's not been a gap. Good to be here, very pleased.
True, is it?
Evening.
Evening. He's been off hunting wabbits, hasn't he, for weeks?
Hunting wabbits. Cook.
Elmer Fudd that hunts rabbits.
Who? Yeah, that's right. Cook. Bring me my Haas and Pfeffer. You guys don't know anything about that.
Do you know what a wok is?
Wok, like a round bowl that you cook in.
What the hell was that?
Asked if we knew what a wok was, then he went very quiet. It's fairly standard practice for Neil.
I know what a wok is, Neil.
Go ahead.
A wok is something you throw at rabbits.
There you go. Finally, somebody. I said that joke 20 times and nobody ever responded. Finally, you got it. The man from down under takes the prize.
Down under what?
What do you mean down under the ball? What do you think?
Jeez.
Boo!
That's an interesting use of common language. They've incorporated the whole down under thing, haven't they?
Yes.
became part of the language for me when I was watching Australian soap operas, or more accurately, my sister and mother were watching Australian soap operas, and they would introduce them as From Down Under and going to Neighbours or Home and Away.
Look at that whole song by Men at Work. I come from a land down under.
Super chat.
Super chat, super chat, super power, super mullet.
I don't know if I'm very easily heard. I'm in the car. Sorry.
You're fine.
Billy Philly said, "Don't start, Neil."
Thanks, Billy Philly. Appreciate it.
Neil gets a lot of stick on the comment section of Flat Earth Debate, and he gets stick from super chatters. Yeah, I don't know. He represents a certain chunk of the audience. Sorry to talk about you in the third person, Neil. But your disdain when something's going on and you interject, everybody moans that you've interjected. The audience knows that they are screaming what you are screaming as you scream it through the actual conversation. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, but Billy Philly's my man.
I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying you're representative of the everyman's opinion when it comes to Flat Earth Debate, and in this case, BALLBUSTERs. Right? Your interjections are valued, but yet people knock you in the comments. Oh, get rid of Neil. He's just disturbing the show. And it's like, no, he's interjecting at the point that the audience, at a general level, would want to scream and throw something at the screen because of the fundy we're dealing with and their circle-jerking nature, or something that we've already covered. So you screaming, we already covered that, or something like that. Colour commentary.
By the way, that remark, you're right about everything you just said. But the other day, that remark about, I don't want to hear no color commentary, yoo-hoo, and yeah, right. I never give a yoo-hoo and yeah, right. At least get the color commentary right.
Oh, QE loves colour commentary, especially when he's in the middle of a presentation. Loves that stuff.
You got our presentation tonight.
Bang. Maitre.
Oh, cool. I'll save my colour commentary for then.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be covering the ontological primitives in there somewhere as well.
I don't
We
think
had a
so.
fair bit of discussion that links back when people start asking us for the cause of entropy. And I never realised how useful that discussion that you, Adam, John D, you others had back in the day. But now when we get down to the nitty-gritty of debunking gravity and the burden of proof reversal comes and they start asking us for what we ascribe as our cause, it's nice to actually know the answer. Not know the answer, know what to say, because there is no answer beyond saying God. As I say, we will get to the ontological primitives in no doubt today.
Are you sure about
It's nice to be able to... When you're talking about the cause of entropy, yeah. I can
No, we're
ascribe...
talking about the Big Bang. I don't think we're going to get there. We might. I can't remember.
Okay, well, I might as well just deal with it. Their version of the narrative, with the Big Bang from the Maitre, is an answer to one of the ontological primitives, isn't it? It's to assert that nature has created itself in violation of the first law of thermodynamics.
And
Well,
quantum mechanics.
that's a true dichotomy. Say again?
And quantum mechanics.
And quantum mechanics.
Yep.
It's a true dichotomy, is the point I was going to drive at, which is to say that when you are relinquished of that answer, which you undoubtedly will be in the progress of this show, what are you left with? Well, you're left with a true dichotomy that you may not have realised was being asked in terms of the beginning of all existence. Did nature create itself, or was there an external force that created us all and everything that we experience? Well, in a true dichotomy, when you eliminate one of the answers, you are only left with one alternative. And in this case, the alternative is an external force created us. Ergo, there is a God, as an alternative to the violation of the first law of thermodynamics that is the Big Bang from the Maitre. There you go. And we don't have to. Cover it, that is.
We're good. Thank you.
My point was, it's nice to be able to answer that, because typically when you get to the point that you're debunking some of the notions of heliocentrism, one of them which is rewound through time when talking about gravity, is to be left with the question unanswered. And in that case, you can rewind them to to a true dichotomy and logical inference that you can draw to answer their question. But it's nice that God is at the end of that process rather than, well, I don't know what causes entropy, which 5 years ago I'd have probably just said, oh, well, surely we can put it through. I did say it. Surely we can put this through science was the original point of the discussion, wasn't it? Well, the answer to that is still, well, strictly speaking, yeah. But what are you, a numpty? Of course you're not going to be able to rewind the arrow of time and figure out a cause. So you're left with what started the arrow of time. That's everything in the known existence. God, the external creator, not nature, more importantly for this discussion.
Surprised not too many people talk about this or think about it. I don't know why. It's sort of a well, duh. Right? Well, at least the two choices, the well does. There's only really one choice. But you have to present the two choices. There are only two.
That conversation is a lesson in humility. It's not often something you hear when people are discussing these topics, that you get to the point that you have to concede that you can't know, you won't know, get over it.
You won't know what?
Cause of entropy.
Oh,
yeah, I don't like that. You won't know. How do you know we won't be able to find out one day?
It's a category error. It's a malformed question. You can't answer that question.
Gen X. What's the cause of entropy?
Yeah, in a practical
you can take
sense,
an effect that...
in a practical sense, it's not available for scientific inquiry. Now, we all know the cause of entropy. God set it in motion. That's the cause. But scientifically,
all you can do is slot a circumstance. You can slot a circumstance that is occurring, and in essence induce a phenomena that has entropy at its heart. For example, what we fondly term as relative density disequilibrium. Well, the disequilibrium part is the bit that you're going to be explaining, as opposed to why we have relative density in the first instance, which is a second order effect of entropy if you're going to break it down into an effect that you can actually observe occurring in nature. But you're dealing with something one step down from the original, why do things follow the arrow of time, which is the malformed question that QE's saying you're asking. If you ask why an egg will displace upwards when you change the density of the medium, you're not asking the same question, are you? But you are. You're asking something within the effect of entropic order or chaos, or whichever way around you want to look at it. You are asking something from within the confines of those processes. But you're not asking what causes entropy because it is malformed. Even if you were, you can still get to the ontological primitives from there. That's where I like to take it. Say not many people take it to that, because they're not considering the only plausible reasonings for the beginnings of any process that involves entropy. That would be the arrow of time. What you got to do, you got to go backwards. You got to start at where it started. Well, their answer to that is the Big Bang, singularities, and all this garbage. Well, that's what they've got as their explanation. It's garbage. It violates the first law. There we go. Back at the start. Or alternatively, totally dead air after that is just as good, I suppose.
Well, you said chaotic in there somewhere. I thought I heard you say chaotic.
I thought I heard Brian for a second there. I know that echo.
Yeah,
Hey, Brian.
I just want to. Hey, Neil, hey, everyone. I was going to say something on that. Entropy, the arrow of time always has to be forward for everything to keep being in a recycle. And things like the egg going up when you change the density of the water, that has to happen for that cycle to continue. If you understand what I mean. So that's like for the cycle to continue, the egg can't not go up. For entropy to keep, otherwise entropy won't be moving everything won't be moving forward in time.
It's a very interesting way of describing it. So you're saying, I like it a lot. You're saying what can be described as a circle coming back on itself, like from water to the gas and then back to the water again, right? The water cycle. Well, you can see that or describe that or even diagram that as being cyclical, circular, cycle. In reality, what you're saying is that the process of entropy for any of the stages that you would describe in that process are all moving in one direction. They're not circling back on themselves. The cyclical process that we're describing is only going forward. I like that.
Well, how would the water cycle function and work if the egg didn't rise when there was a greater amount of density added to the water? Do you know what I mean? That would mean that water cycle wouldn't function because the water vapor wouldn't go up to the point where it will accumulate and become clouds and come back down as rain. So there's an up-down going on. There's an up and down vector. So the egg has to rise, if you know what I mean, or fall, depending, go up or go down in the water, depending on what way the density of the water is. If you lessen the density, it goes down. If you raise the density, it go up. But it has to do that because otherwise the cycle, like as you just use the example of the hydrological cycle, that won't work otherwise. How could you have the egg not doing that and also having water vapor going up, becoming clouds and coming down? Do you know what I mean? It's like there's certain things that are just like, that has to happen, otherwise entropy won't be entropy and there won't be these cycles the cycles we experience.
Right. And the cycles themselves, from a textbook standpoint, are described with respect to a flat plane. As soon as you have things going up into the quasi-atmosphere, that's a flat plane or flat earth description to have the up and the down aspect of it described with respect to horizontal. A lot of the descriptions for things like cycles require a flat plane to describe them.
Well, how does rain work without a flat,
Sorry, buddy. I was just going to say, you can't do that in a ball. That up and down.
Well, if you think about how many raindrops that come down, with the exception of wind blowing them, right? But just without the wind, how many raindrops are coming down, and all with parallel vectors? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but just to describe the height of the clouds they're coming from, you need a flat plane to describe that. You will be describing it with respect to sea level, won't you?
Yeah, I mean, every part of that cycle involves an up and a down and a height above sea level, mean sea level. So, you know, you're dealing with up and down over a horizontal plane.
Up and down.
Flat Earth proof aside, did we find out in this presentation why Lemaitre came up with the Big Bang? Was there a necessity, like with, you know, Keplerian or extended elliptical orbits? You know, the reasoning is to figure out patterns so you can better decipher when Easter's going to be. Is that the case with the Big Bang? Was there a purpose behind it?
Corruption.
Corruption.
I missed that. What was that?
Corruption.
Okay. If you say so. I mean, was there a useful practical application? At least with Kepler, I can say this is how it better progressed our understanding of the motion of the lights in the sky. Even though it's being described with respect to a sphere Earth and orbital motion, you can still admire the elegance of it and understand and appreciate what was trying to be achieved, even though it's now been reified into an actual ball beneath the Western world's general guy's feet. You can still appreciate and admire the prowess of the guy who's come up with it and the purposes behind it. I'm just asking, is that the case with Lemaitre? Or do they just need a little backstory? I mean, I don't really know. That's why I'm asking.
I didn't get into the why.
Sometimes it's incorporated into the story, though, isn't it?
Well, we're going to tell the story, so if you hear it, make sure and stop me.
I'll shout, bingo.
Bingo.
Is he not a Jesuit?
Yes.
I was just going to ask, is he Catholic, the Lemaitre guy?
Yeah.
Because that's relevant. Did he like the colour purple?
So that's why they came out. No, so that's why they came out with the Big Bang. because they know that they can use that when they say, God said, let there be light. And bang, there was light. And that starts the whole process. So God can be incorporated.
That's
I
what.
would suggest unincorporated would be the
No,
purpose.
that's what Fred Hoyle thought too. He was an atheist, and he coined the phrase "Big Bang" because that he thought that the creationists were trying to get a foot in the door. But that was many years after Lemaitre postulated this.
And when was that? What was the year? What's Lemaitre's time period?
I don't know. In 1927. 1927.
I'm getting 1927 from that.
Yes, he said it in 1927. That's what we're going to start out with. No, it was right there, right in the second word. But that it wasn't called the Big Bang then. At that point, it was called the hypothesis of the primeval atom.
It's got a lot better ring to it, hasn't it?
The Big Bang. Yeah,
The what?
That. Oh, you're saying the hypothesis
of the what?
Hypothesis of the primordial atom.
primeval.
Joke.
Primordial atom. In the primordial
It's an
soup.
atom. Atom. But
So, and then it was.
it's really recent.
It's also a different theological description, if that's what he postulated, isn't it? So to have a primeval atom, as opposed to all the atoms that ever will exist, all crammed into a finitely small space, there's a different theological beginning.
Heck, we might as well get right into this, right? Since there's been no foreplay, we'll just go right into it, right?
Anything I wanted to add was to say a lot of these stories that have come in respect to heliocentrism are recent. People don't necessarily appreciate how recent, and this is one of the most recent, right? I don't know if the story of Thea is slightly more recent, from the 40s maybe, but the overall backstory for the creation of a heliocentric universe has only come to fruition in our grandparents or maybe great grandparents. You know, that sort of time. It's not very long, in other words. We've had this nonsense. And the nonsense itself as a whole is only maybe 350 years old. But just don't realise how recent heliocentrism as a religion is.
Yeah, it started with Copernicus and Kepler, mainly Kepler.
There's also a move to deceive people that it's thousands of years old, right? The last time you were giving out some very juicy information, Brian, I interrupted you at that point, and you were like, "Oh, you're ruining the crescendo," and I'm like, "Yeah, because there's been an extra narrative inserted into the heliocentric history that makes it seem like they had this notion of Earth being a sphere 2,000 years ago. It's garbage. It's just inserted into the history books. I mean, I'm quite confident to say that based on the fact that there's no primary sources for it. The primary sources do go back to about 350 years for that story. Right about the time that the actual heliocentric narrative came to fruition and started becoming prevalent. That's when we start seeing these 2,000-year-old bullshit stories of sticks and shadows. Yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, unless someone can give me the globe geocentric, what they would call, let's call it paradigm.
Super chat.
Superman, Superchat, Supercell, Supercomputer, Superstition.
And although you can't hear Booger, he's saying it back there, okay?
All right. Thanks, Bugger.
Roger Ledwell sent.
He didn't say anything.
We all completely agree.
Let me go back. Check it.
Out to Roger.
Roger Ledwell said, "Time bandits." Shout out to Evening.
Thank you, Roger. And shout out to Bugger. Good to know he's still in the back there, keeping up with the super chats.
That was
Time bandits will come when it comes, right? There's no rush, and I, for one, don't want to put pressure on Adam to produce this stuff.
Nah,
This spans back 10 years, right? 10 years of us looking at this subject as a whole will probably culminate in parts of the Time Bandits presentation when it eventually comes to fruition. But there's so much nonsense in the South to wade through. It's not going to be quick, is it, Adam?
No. Well, I'm trying to take another step and I'd like to make a claim. It's okay looking at stuff, making accusations about what's going on, but how that works, what it works, is kind of the next phase, to kind of just unravel it a bit, other than just point it out what has been pointed out. You know, you've only got to go and watch previous Time Bandits. Me and Brian did, I think, just before Christmas. But actually up to date, really. Other than, like, Brian sent me pictures today, stuff we're looking at of how we're trying to figure it out, because we've got so many different grid systems overlaid and interlaid. And that's what we're kind of looking at, that interlay of systems and how they have to be used within each other, and how that then constructs a ball. That's kind of not much more to say than that.
Sorry, Adam, I stepped on the end of what you're saying. But I was going to say the starting point for the globe is extremely simple. It couldn't be simpler. They just took all the south ends of the longitude lines and made them meet like the north ends. That's all they did. And from then on, they just obviously had to use flat measurements, but they keep converting them to globe. And then they came out with the cylinder map, which is the universal transverse Mercator, and made that an XY grid based off of latitude and longitude on a globe. So it's an XY grid where the latitude and longitude conversions go straight back to globe version. You know what I mean? It's like people thinking, I'm measuring on flat. I'm using a universal transverse Mercator map. Then you go, oh no, that's a globe map. Oh, well, it's globe then. Completely, like it's like a distraction away from, hang on, where did the latitude and longitude grid that's on that globe come from in the first place? And can they substantiate all the time zones out of the equator? No, they can't. Nor can they measure that latitude and longitude grid. On their globe, they can't do it. It can only be measured on a horizontal plane. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. Their beginning point is so simple. They just complicated it as much as possible after that. That's basically what happened.
Yeah, they've got a very simple system that they wrapped around a ball, and that would be really obvious if you tried to just use the ball. So, 2 or 3 conversions later, and they have a sign formula, and people think that the conversion to a flat map is from a ball, and that's where it ends. But no. Started with a flat Earth measurement to Polaris. Then you've got your grid to wrap around a ball, to then put on a cylinder, to roll out flat for your transverse Mercator with a flat square grid.
Well, something that I will be addressing in the future, I would have addressed it already, I'd say, if I'd had a computer in recent times, but something I will be addressing in the close future is what's known as rum lines, and the use of the Habermas formula with what they call great circle routes. Because there's a lot about that people don't understand, especially the borders. They think planes and everything are using great circle routes. They're not. Right? They're given the impression that they're using them. People are given the impression they're using them. They're actually not using them. They're converting back to a great circle route after they've used rum lines. I'll go into that another time. But yeah, everything is like a conversion back to a globe. Back to a globe.
Superchat.
Back to a globe.
Superfluid, superintendent, superfly, supercharged, supermarket.
All right. Hold on. Roger Ledwell said, no pressure intended, supermodel.
Supermodel or supermolid?
Said supermodel. I may not be able to call out all these super chats today. So forgive me, guys.
That's okay. Adam. Evening. Adam has our back.
Marmot.
Not during the presentation, though. Just hold up when the presentation's going until the end.
Understood.
Brian, did you want to finish up? What were the things that you sent me earlier, all random like? Didn't explain anything?
Oh, that's phase 1 of the flat out world map.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you got a flat Earth world map coming out.
Yeah, that's phase 1 of it. There are some corrections that may need to be made. May need to be done, but I don't know. I have to check a few things. But what I have to do is convert. I won't go into it. It's not what I'm doing is not really that complicated. It's just to get your head around it. It seems complicated till you think about it. It's something I should have done ages ago. But what it is me just showing, basically showing like an AE map, but without the south distortions. So Australia is not all stretched out. South America, South Africa are not all stretched out. Tahiti and Hawaii are not stretched away from each other. Things like that. Do you know what I mean? So that's the starting point. But I'm trying to but the latitude and longitude grid is staying equal, not changing. You're keeping that the same as on, let's say, the Gleason's map, but I'm taking away the distortions on Australia and other places. Because, latitude and longitude, especially like the longitude lines, they depict time zones. And the time zones only work on a flat plane. So more to come. But that's what they're about.
Brian's gonna be famous, man.
I don't think
I'll go disappear into history. Go on.
I don't think that's as lofty a goal that I've got with this. To try and produce a map, I think would be, wow. I say it's more understanding of what it's doing, exactly how and why. I've got more of an idea, but yeah, a loftier goal as that, I don't think I'd set that out as any kind of claim. It's fun to do, and it helps give understanding, as models do.
Models?
Well, that's kind of what you're creating. You're creating little models here of what's gone off.
A map is a model?
No, we haven't got. We've got little models that are doing little things. This is what I'm trying to distinguish. To get to a map, I think is, like I say, is a goal I wouldn't say I'm setting out to achieve.
Well, I am, but I know all I have to do is create a map that is more correct than what the globe gives us. A map that's more correct than the Gleason's map, for instance. Right? A more correct map than that. And what I've sent QE earlier, I sent him to Adam that as well, that is actually starting to become more correct already. Because the Gleason's map gives us loads of information. And Gleason himself gave us loads of information. But obviously, because he couldn't get the patent, he had to stretch out all the continents out of the equator. Whereas I don't have to make the whole map. I just have to show that what I'm showing is correct. And then a cartographer eventually can create the map, if necessary. But it depends on how much information I get and how good I am at doing what I'm doing. Because I kind of know what to do. Even what I gave as QE, let's just say what I gave you there last night, is a rough draft, but it's not that rough. I only have to maybe change a few things, and it's already more correct than every other claimed world map. Do you know what I mean? So when they're saying, where's your flat Earth map, I can then produce a map that's better than all of their claimed globe maps. World maps, like.
Yeah, but they're all flat Earth
world
maps. Yeah, but those are the ones they're giving you are all flat Earth maps, though.
It's their origins are, but the layout of the projection is globe.
Yes.
Or it's distorted from globe.
Yes.
I'm giving, But the point of what I'm doing is creating a map that's more correct than all of them. but it is
I
only
think
on a flat plane.
I think we got that. I think that's the third time you said it. I think are you saying that you're going to create a map that's more correct than any maps they have?
Yes.
Very well.
They use flat Earth maps to give you an area that's navigable, following the rules that we've got that only demonstrate the area of the globe.
Huh?
Yeah, that's the problem, you see.
Hmm.
But it's only a problem south of the equator, mainly. See, all I have to do is produce something that's better than what's already there. That's all I have to do as a beginning point.
They make it bigger in the north and a lot smaller in the south. There's lots of issues. Anyway, I digress, QE.
Isn't that what we always do?
Yeah, but now I can digress with a super chat.
You got a super chat, superstar, super glue, supernova.
Okay, from Roger Ledwell. Suggest a name for it, Brian Spider.
Is that what you're going to name the map?
You get that, Brian, then?
What name will I give it? I wouldn't call it a flat anything. I just call it a world map, correct world map. That's it. Because that's what it'll be. Do you know what I mean? Trying to say this map is based off of a globe or this map is based off of a flat plane. No, it's just going to be a correct world map. It won't fit a globe. Do you know what I mean? That's because that globe is incorrect. So how can you have correct and incorrect? You can't.
Well, this has its
I'm thinking
this has its origins in Time Bandits, right? Part of it, anyway.
Yes. I mean, it starts with the measurement of the latitude and longitude.
Yep. Which
and
is all
the
flatter.
point. So it needs a name. I'm with Roger.
That's
I'm
all
thinking
right.
a Bryonian projection.
A Bryonian.
The Bryson projection?
A Bryonian projection.
Well, I could give it we could give it a humorous name, but I wouldn't want to get too humorous about it. Because you get too humorous about it, it won't be taken serious.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You want a good name.
No.
You want to give it a good, strong name. Call it the Nathan Oakley map.
Call it the logic map.
The flat logic map. It sounds good, but unfortunately, I don't know if that's the thing about it. It has to be something that will be taken serious.
Well, we got some time to think about it. Plenty of time. Yes.
I think Bryonian projection is perfectly serious.
You would.
You could name it after your cat. All right. What's your cat called?
I have 6 cats.
The sick one with the mouth at the moment.
Oh, Paws. The Paws projection.
Paul's projection, there you go. A bit of alliteration as well.
Right, should we do this presentation then, QE?
Sorry, my cat's trolling me.
Hold on. Brian, you make a map, you getting your name on that thing.
I have to take that up with the cat now. There'll be issues.
You want my cat's name? Snickers.
Snickers projection, that's not so good.
I don't think that's going to make it.
What about the Brian Oakley projection?
The Brian Oakley projection. I don't call him Snickers though. We call him Kitty. Just Kitty. Nah, that ain't gonna work. What do you want, Nathan? What does the MC want? Does he want to get back to the subject matter?
I mean, I'm hoping so.
Bam! Boy, that was quick. We're already on it. Look at how that goes. So just keep a weathered eye, a weather ear out for a possible more correct world map than presently accounted for. How about that? Is that good, Brian?
Yeah, exactly, QE. Because they're all already incorrect, so it won't be difficult.
Yeah.
Will it
You know what I
be?
mean?
Will it be any better than the current maps that we have?
Yes.
Yeah, it will be. It's already
Will I
better.
be closer to the sea?
You will if you want to be.
I'll do for me, Cocker.
All right. The Big Bang Theory. Are we all on board?
Definitely not.
Apparently not.
This is just a ridiculous straw man loaded question. No.
Yeah, that was the correct answer. Why? Because we got a big problem with this little fiasco right here, theory. It's not a scientific theory, it never was. All right, here we go. Got a ruckus in my background, but I'm gonna trudge my way through it. Like I said before, in 1927, the father of modern cosmology. Yeah, that's what they call him. Georges Henry Joseph Eduardo Lemaitre, Jesuit and Catholic priest, conjured what we now know as the Big Bang, which he termed then, in 1927, as the hypothesis of the primeval atom. Distinguished astrophysicist Fred Hoyle, atheist from Cambridge. Of course, he went back on that later in life, but I digress. At that particular time, he was a staunch atheist from Cambridge. During a 1949 BBC radio broadcast, coined the phrase Big Bang, clearly pejorative and derisive, as Fred was a proponent of the steady state theory. See, atheists didn't much care for the hypothesis of the primeval atom because it hinted at a creator and was highly contentious for over the next 20 years. Get a look at this guy. There he is with the fuzzy-headed Einstein off to the right. You got Abby Georges Lemaitre in the center. And Joe Pesci's grandfather over to the left. That's a good view. That's not Joe Pesci's grandfather. That's he's a man of renown. That is, what was his name? I've seen him before. Robert Millikan. That's who it is. So there you go. That's from Caltech. They met at Caltech. So it's from the Caltech archives. So what is the Big Bang Theory? Well, right off the bat, we already know it's not a scientific theory. From the Universe Today, the basics of the Big Bang theory are fairly simple. In short, the Big Bang hypothesis. Why did they switch up already? They went from the theory right to hypothesis. It's neither, but in short, the Big Bang hypothesis states that all the current and past matter in the universe came into existence at the same time. Love that. Roughly 13.8 billion years ago, but I think they've changed this number recently. But I digress. At this time, all matter was compacted into a very small ball with, infinite density and intense heat called the singularity. Most people don't know what the Big Bang actually is. Even though it's a fiasco, they don't know what the fiasco is. That's it right there. There'll be a couple other definitions below that we'll get into, but that's pretty much it. I have some problems with this, obviously. Number one, came into existence? Pray tell. What, where, and how? Then please explain how this came into existence doesn't violate the first law of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics, please. I'd like to hear that. And whoa there, coachies. Infinite density? More like infinite imagination. From Pandian Astrophysics from Cornell University. A singularity means a point where some property is infinite. For example, at the center of a black hole, that they don't exist, according to classical theory, whatever that is, the density is infinite. because a finite mass is compressed into a zero volume. Look at this. There's so much nonsense here. But I'll just deal with the last statement after this one. From Fizzlink, the Big Bang singularity is a point of zero volume. So we're getting some echoes here, right? But very high mass. I'd like to know what mass is, too. Which makes the density infinite. How you like that logic? Volume can't be zero in this equation, just to let you know. Every primary school student knows you can't divide by friggin' zero. So now we not only can divide by zero, but when we do the answer is infinity. How you like them apples? Gotta love what they do with that. Oh, we're going to need you to scientifically validate the 13.8 billion years. And by the way, like I said, I think they've extended this over the past year. I don't know the exact number. Can somebody help me with that? Anyone?
I think it's over 14 now, 14.2 or something.
Oh, okay. It wasn't that big of a jump. Only a couple 100 million years. Like I said, scientifically validate this first fiasco first. Right? So what we're going to need to see, we're going to see the observed natural phenomenon first, because that's your dependent variable. You're not going to get past A. Right? That's how you know it's a fairy tale. B, post a formal scientific hypothesis, as if. C, identify the independent, dependent, and control variables in this experiment, and then cite the source. That ain't happening ever. And D, post the null hypothesis that was rejected or falsified. Not going to happen. It'd be easier resurrecting Alexander the Great's horse than answering A, B, C, or D. Number 4, you can't have zero volume and also have heat. Well, I shouldn't even added this. You can't have zero volume. It's stupid. The heat, kinetic energy, and vibrating molecules in zero volume. That's just a clown show. Oh, so we got more of the Big Bang from space.com. Let's see what they have to say. The Big Bang Theory is the leading explanation. It's like we have explanations like on a racetrack, and all of a sudden it breaks out. It starts extending its length, and it's now the leading explanation. Huh? How you like that? The Big Bang Theory is the leading explanation about how the universe began. At its simplest, it talks about the universe as we know it, starting with a small singularity, then inflating over the next 13.8 billion years to the cosmos that we know today. So like I said, number 1, leading explanation. I'm laughing my ass off. Number 2, common mistakes in applying the scientific method. From the University of Rochester Physics Labs, the most fundamental error is to mistake the hypothesis for an explanation of a phenomena without performing experimental tests. They don't even have a hypothesis. All they have is an explanation. So this is a train wreck of epic proportions. This has nothing. This is what we call pseudoscience, people. Simple as that. Connect the dots. Won't take long. All they have is a leading explanation. Like I said, where's the hypothesis and where's the experiment? There aren't any. 2, starting with a small singularity. Well, where'd you get the singularity? Number 3, inflation. We got a problem. From Morgan J. interview, Scientific American, 2014. He interviewed Paul Steinhardt, the father of evolution, the father of inflation theory from the Albert Einstein Professor in Science and Director of the Center for Theoretical Science at Princeton. He states, since 1983, it has become clear that inflation is very flexible. Parameters can be adjusted to give any result, and generically leads to a multiverse consisting of patches in which any outcome is possible. Imagine a scientific theory that was designed to explain and predict, but ends up allowing literally any conceivable possibility without any rule about what is more likely. What good is it? It rules out nothing and can never be put to a real test. So there goes inflation. It was never there to begin with. He just conjured it. And then train wrecked it himself, Paul Steinhardt. According to standard theory, our universe, this is from Big Bang, they even got a website, bigbangtheory.com. According to the standard theory, I'd like to know what that is. Our universe sprang into existence as a singularity around 13.7 billion years ago. Where's the 8 at? Who cares? We're only talking about tenths of a decimal point, right? Number 1, sprang. Yeah, I'd like you to define that. Too funny. Again, from bigbangtheory.com. The singularity, this is very important. Check this out. The singularity didn't appear in space. Rather, space began inside of the singularity. Prior to the singularity, nothing existed. Not space, time, matter, or energy, nothing. So where and in what did the singularity appear, if not in space? We don't know. This is a mouthful right here, guys. This is pretty funny. I like that. So 1, nothing existed, then the singularity appeared. Please explain in the first law of thermodynamics and then quantum mechanics context, por favor. And obviously, this is a textbook appeal to ignorance fallacy. The Big Bang is not an actual scientific theory, professors. You see, they, the pseudoscience priests, merely repeat their conjurings a few 100,000 times over multiple decades into the waiting ears of their incoherent hordes. You know, for example, baltards. Then sit back and laugh. Why? Well, they know their target audience wouldn't know the difference between actual science and a chartreuse windsock. They also know baltards will not only believe it, they'll mindlessly parrot it. So, like I said, define the Big Bang, post the Big Bang scientific theory. This is not happening. This might happen, but it's an incoherent train wreck. This will never happen. On its face. So we don't have to go to C, D, and F. Even more moronic, if you can believe it. If that were even possible, like I said, they have brain-dead atheists parroting what they gnash their teeth and rail against, religion. Because the conjurer of the Big Bang quote-unquote theory was Georges Henry Joseph Eduardo, I know it's Edward, but I like saying Eduardo Lemaitre, Jesuit and Catholic priest. It's tantamount to Jedi mind tricking PETA nudists into advertising and backing fur traders. Hypocrite, pretender clown spinning space monkey muppets. Also, we have Georges Lemaitre, our Jesuit Catholic priest, who was the first to derive Hubble's law. Redshift, published 2 years before Edwin Hubble. It is officially known as the Hubble-Lemaitre law. Oh, and if you see my personal demolition of the CMB and Redshift fiascos on my channel, just punch in CMB or Redshift, in the search bar, and they'll hook you up. Baltards, again, the Big Bang predicts the CMB, the cosmic microwave background radiation, right? You think? We don't think so. Dunning-Kruger, mindless hypocrite, CP, and nudist fur traders above, parroting pretender clowns. So the year is 1948. 11 papers were submitted, mainly by 3 players. George Gamow and his students, Ralph Elfer and Robert Herman. Now the hot Big Bang was bubbling. The predictions, not scientific predictions, the Gene Dixon ones. The predictions, though, were of what was already known to exist. How you like that? Little post hoc action for you. The theorists in 1948 were merely confirming the model, would like to see that, to data already collected from 1937 to 1941. I'm going to show that here. The 3 Musketeers made additional predictions, not scientific predictions, of the CMB temperature that ranged from 3 to 50 degrees Kelvin. From NASA.gov, the existence of the CMB radiation was first predicted by Ralph Elfer in 1948 in connection with his research on Big Bang nucleosynthesis undertaken together with Robert Herman and George Gamow, just like I said above. Again, predicted. What was that hypothesis again? Yeah, there isn't one. Let's take a listen to the Nobel lecture From Robert Wilson of Bell Laboratories. Cosmic microwave background radiation. Check this one out. The first confirmation of the microwave cosmic background that we knew of, however, came from a totally different indirect measure. This measurement had, in fact, been made 30 years earlier by Adams and Dunnan. I'm going to show that here just below. Adams and Dunnan had discovered several faint optical interstellar absorption lines, which were later identified within the molecules of carbide, methylide, and cyanide. In the case of cyanide, in addition to the ground state, absorption was seen from the first rotational excited state. McKellar, 22, using Adams data on the population of these two states, calculated that the excitation temperature of cyanide was 2.3 Kelvin. He's talking about these guys right down here from 1937. I got them for you. In 1937, Adams and Dunham found some absorption lines which were later identified with interstellar molecules CH carbine, CH plus, methylene, cation, and cyanide. And this, they're referring to this one also, from the Astrophysical Observatory in Victoria, British Columbia in 1941. Proceedings of the Astronomical Society. In 1940, Canadian astrophysicist and spectroscopist Andrew McKellar calculated that the cyanide molecules were in thermal equilibrium with a temperature of about 2.3 Kelvin. So we already had measurements showing up in the literature 8 years before 1948, making the Mystic Meg prediction a post hoc diction, a classic Texas sharpshooter fallacy. I don't see how this can get by anyone. This is common knowledge. Let's head back to Robert Wilson's Nobel lecture. At that time, some radio astronomers thought that the microwave absorption of the Earth's atmosphere was about twice the value we were using. In other words, the sky temperature, figures 6 and 8, was about 5 Kelvin instead of 2.5 Kelvin. We knew from our measurement of sky temperature, such as shown in figure 7, that this could not be the case. Really? How'd they know that? Again, see my personal demolition of the CMB and Redshift fiascos. Type it into my channel search engine and get the popcorn out. So at 5 Kelvin, eh? That's a full universe worth of air in the prediction. This is tantamount to predicting the Seattle Seahawks will score between 0 and 1,000 points in their next game and claiming confirmation of the prediction when they score 28. Let's just say what needs to be said. Well, we don't need to say it. We'll let William Mitchell say it from the Physics Essays, Volume 10, Number 12, or Number 2 in 1997. History also shows that some Big Bang cosmologists' predictions of the microwave background radiation temperature have been adjusted after the fact. Like I said, it's post hoc. All of it's post hoc bullshit to agree with observed temperatures. It's all over. All this is nonsense. And they recognize it. Christians, be careful out there. Georges Lemaitre, Jesuit and Catholic priest, conjured the Big Bang out of nothing. So I'd slam the brakes on the Christian moniker here. Let's take a look at this. Big Bang. The Big Bang states naturalistic cause, singularity, quantum fluctuation. We'll be dealing with that here in a few minutes. And nothing. Also, it's a first law of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics violation. But God's word said God caused it. You got a big problem. So, Nathan, there you go. There's the ontological primitives for you.
I was going to say, bingo.
Yeah, you should have said bingo. Yeah, I should have said that. Yeah. Big Bang, billions of years ago. God's word, thousands of years. See Genesis 5:10, Doctrine of Salvation. Not going to get into that here today. Big Bang, sun before the earth, God's word, earth before the sun. We have some problems here, folks. Big Bang, the earth, molten rock first, God's word, earth, water first. Big Bang, fish before trees, God's word, trees before fish. See, there's subtle differences, major compromises here, right? So if you're a Christian and you say, oh yeah, God created it with a Big Bang. No. You're actually dead right here with number one. You just don't know it. You're just conforming to fairy tale secular nonsense, pseudoscience, We want to stop right there for a second.
Can do.
Any comments?
Yeah, not questions first, but if I can just run through a couple of super chats. The super chat.
Superstar.
Okay. First one, Roger Ledwell. These are going to struggle to make sense now because I'm not allowed to read them out where they would have made sense. I'm sure it will fit on Nathan's head. Thank you, Roger Ledwell. Super chat.
Is that all it said?
No, this is the next one. Each one is worthy of its own announcement as a super chat. So, super chat.
Super small, it's super out, super cell, supercharged, superfly, Super Bowl.
Thank you, sir. Roger Ledwell. It's the latter that matters. Lol. And super chat.
Super fluid, superintendent, superfly, super mullet.
That's one from Roger Ledwell. That's one fat tire. Thank you, Roger.
One fat.
But back to you. There was one bit, Nate. You stopped and Nathan butted in, and it was a bit I was going to interrupt on. I think it was point 2, the scientific hypothesis for this point of non-existence to everything. Surely the only thing is it could start with if God would be the only way I would be able to, like I say, look at this thing in any, if I wanted to formulate it like that.
Yeah, but it
has
wouldn't
to
be a
if God.
hypothesis. That wouldn't be a hypothesis, though.
Not one of its own. No, I'm saying, but you'd have to start with. That is the whole purpose. See, when you look at what Lemaitre is saying, he's still trying to create something out of nothing. No matter what he does, that's the flim-flam, to brush over that bit.
Well, that's the next topic.
Okay, sorry.
See, wait a second. I said, Christians, be careful. Wait a second. So, and then I stopped there. So, guess what's next, Adam? Something from
that was the other bit. At that point, it's kind of important that when
you think.
No, like we're criticizing some of these masters that are, what's his name, Answers in Genesis dude, that are ignoring the scripture. But this is like the way it's portrayed evolution. Like I say, which comes first? And they might appear to be trivial, but fundamentally they're contradicting scripture in their own theology.
Yes. Yes, yeah. Yep. Good point.
I thought that was the point you were pausing on, because that I say it's something we're holding people to with flat Earth now, where they're citing scripture or ignoring scripture when they're Bible believers. But this is like, I say, from a theological is the wrong word, but a kind of an order of creation point of view in this new theology that you're going to accept because it's a big old world, really, and these ancients didn't. Actually, the order of creation is disrupted. I know that's a repetition. I thought it's worth it.
Yeah.
I thought we all knew it was a contradiction.
Yeah, but
Is that new news?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people out there, Neil, that don't look that far into it, and they just take it, as read. That okay, Big Bang. God said there was light. Boom, light, and okay, Bob's your uncle. Everything's good. But once you lift up the cover of what the Big Bang proponents actually claim, then there's contradiction after contradiction. Not only, we already know it's not science, but I'm saying even underneath that it flies in the face of, it's just inconsistent with Genesis and with God's word. Yes, got it. Now, something from, go ahead.
I just 2 quick points. The first point I'd make is that this thing about the leading explanation, right? That's subjective, because that's the leading explanation for somebody who is maybe not a knower of God, someone who is maybe atheist, whatever. Yeah, that's for them. It's the leading explanation, not for me. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely not the leading. It's absolutely last in the pile, for me. The other point I would make is, how do you have 3D matter and energy? How do you have like matter and energy without 3D space?
You don't.
Because the singularity requires 3D space.
You don't. It's an entire contradictory train wreck, and it's mind numbing.
There's a specific bit that you cited, QE. The singularity is not in space. The space is in singularity before.
That's correct. That's from the BigBangTheory.com. Yep.
How can the space be within the matter that needs to be within the space?
Because this is where, see, why is the TARDIS so big on the inside but so small on the outside? It's one of those. Because actually it's not on the inside, it's only we wrap around it. It's called nonsense, sci-fi, yeah? Over the problem of what we're objecting to, we say, oh yeah, well, the space didn't exist. It existed inside the singularity up until the point of the Big Bang, and then the space exists and the singularity expands within it. Problem solved by bullshit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is second grade horseshit right here. The whole thing. I mean, it could be reconciled in 15 seconds in between iterations of Candy Crush. That's how much of a joke this is. This didn't take that much to put together, folks. Here's another pretty hilarious concept. Okay, let's take a look at this something from nothing. This is from David Darling. He's a quantum physicist. He mentioned this in 1996 in the New Scientist. He said, what is the big deal? The biggest deal of all is how you get something out of nothing. Don't let the cosmologists try to kid you on this one. They have not got a clue either, despite the fact that they are doing a pretty good job of convincing themselves and others that this is really not a problem. In the beginning, they will say, there was nothing, no time, space, or matter and energy. Then there was a quantum fluctuation from which, hooah, stop right there. You see what I mean? First, there is nothing, then there is something. And the cosmologists try to bridge the two with a quantum flutter, a tremor of uncertainty that sparks it all off. Then they're away, and before you know it, they've pulled 100 billion galaxies out of their quantum hats. I like the cut of David Darling's jib right here. Just sticking it in, right? Just telling them right what the deal is. I liked it. From David Albert, PhD, quantum physics. He's big. We've got some pipe hitters, heavy pipe hitters now. On the origin of everything, he reviewed the universe from nothing by Lawrence de Krauss in 2012. Let's see what he has to say. The fact that some arrangements of fields happen to correspond to the existence of particles and some don't is not a whit more mysterious than the fact that some of the possible arrangements of my fingers happen to correspond to the existence of a fist and some don't. And the fact that particles can pop in and out of existence over time as those fields rearrange themselves is not a whit more mysterious than the fact that fists can pop in and out of existence over time as my fingers rearrange themselves. And none of these poppings, if you look at them aright, amount to anything even remotely in the neighborhood of a creation from nothing. So Albert, he really smashed Lawrence like Krauss needed smashing anyway. Double speaking idiot. This is one of my favorites though. And like I said, these are some hard pipe hitting pseudoscientists. We're not messing around. From Alan Guth, professor of physics, MIT. In this context, a proposal that the universe was created from empty space is no more fundamental than a proposal that the universe was spawned by a piece of rubber. It might be true, but one would still want to ask where the piece of rubber came from. At least he can think on his feet.
Get your own rubber.
Get to your house to stick it. Get your own rubber. Before we move on, any questions about this fiasco right here?
Superchat.
Superfluid, supernova, super carpet, super troopers.
Hey, Roger Ledwell again. You're prolific tonight, sir. Pandora's box got a makeover.
Yes, it did, Pet. That's a good one, Roger. Yeah, it's got a makeover. You got that right. I like where your mind's at. Anything from something from nothing. I want to get an atheist in the corner and see him bob and weave, like Ali, shucking and jiving. Go ahead and bring up. So, how'd you get something out of nothing? They'll try to redefine nothing. It's really, really juvenile, pathetically feeble juvenile nonsense. Yeah.
I know my quantum mechanics understanding is limited. Even surely a quantum flutter of nothing. If there's nothing there, how? Anyway,
anything else? Now, quantum mechanics doesn't save their dumbasses. They think they do by just saying quantum mechanics or quantum fluctuations, but it's all nonsense.
I was gonna say that seems again stealing of valor.
Yeah,
we've got flutter, which is what you're suggesting, a flutterance of nothing. I mean, if we say that where this fluttering is occurring is in quantum, i.e., we steal the valor of quantum mechanics, it makes it all more plausible.
Yeah, but David Albert compromised
existence out of nothing.
Yeah, David Albert compromised him because he knows. I mean, first-year student in quantum physics knows that all that is horseshit.
Which is less likely, something to flutter out of nothingness or to spring out of nothingness?
It sprang into existence, right?
But quantum flutter, nicer than just springing.
Yeah, because well, if you say that, if people say that, not too many people, you got the hordes of the incoherent knuckle draggers. If somebody says quantum, then no one's going to say anything because no one's looked into it. I don't want to say no one, but you're saying about 0.5%, probably even less, percent of the population, you're not going to get any blowback. Oh, he must be right. They must be right. They're scientists. They mentioned quantum. I guess they're right. That's what they're going for. And it's worked. Yes?
I think that was the point I was making.
Yeah. Let's head on over to more pseudoscience. The nebular hypothesis.
Hold on a second. Yeah, it's worked because there's nobody to challenge them. That's why it's worked. That's all I wanted to say.
The nebular hypothesis. Thanks, Neil. Nebular hypothesis. I know you guys heard of this before. It's still taught in quackademia, by the way. From the General History and Nature of Theory of the Heavens by Immanuel Kant, 1755. Some 4 billion years ago, the sun had ejected a tail or a filament of material that cooled and collected and thus formed the planets. The originator of that mess that he just spoke of right here met with Edmund Halley of Halley's Comet fame at Cambridge. Then Halley passed the story off to Kant. And Kant was the one that came up with the nebular hypothesis. There was another guy, too. Can't recall his name. He might be. Oh, Laplace. Kant and Laplace. That's right. So, but the person who conjured this, his name was Emanuel Swedenborg. He was the originator. He proffered the nebular hypothesis nonsense to Edmund Halley 21 years before Kant went off, Kant and Laplace in 1796. Guess where Swedenborg got all the ideas from up here? That was rhetorical, by the way. By talking with spirits from Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and the Moon. I shit you not. That's where the nebular hypothesis actually originated from. Let's go a little deeper. Nebular hypothesis aficionados. Allow me to introduce you to the law of conservation of angular momentum, which states that angular momentum is conserved when there is zero net torque, red vacuum, applied to a system, where the system is the object or objects that are rotating. You can picture a skater spinning faster when their arms are pulled in closer to the body. In the formation of our sun from a nebula in space, the same effect would have occurred as the gases allegedly contracted. That's a second law of thermodynamics violation, by the way. Into the center to form the sun. Excuse me. This would have caused the sun to spin very rapidly. But our sun spins very slowly, according to the fairy tale, while the planets move very rapidly around the sun, according to the fairy tale. In fact, although the sun has over 99.86% of the mass, whatever that is, of the solar system, it has less than 2% of the angular momentum, according to their fairy tale story. This pattern is directly opposite to the Mystic Med prediction for the nebular hypothesis. It's all contradictory. And the outer planets are larger than the inner ones. Again, directly opposite of the Nostradamus prediction. From NAIR, Birth of Uranus and Neptune, Astronomy in 2000. Psst. Astronomers who model, the formation of the solar system have kept a dirty little secret. Uranus and Neptune don't exist. Or at least computer simulations have never explained how planets as big as the two gas giants could form so far from the sun. Bodies orbited so slowly in the outer parts of the solar system that the slow process of gravitational accretion would need more time than the age of the solar system to form bodies with 14.5 and 17.1 times the mass, whatever that is, of the Earth. It's in their own literature, people, is what I'm trying to tell you. In their own literature concerning their fairy tale, there are paradoxes in their fairy tale. More, the nebular hypothesis carnival tent predicts that as the nebula spiraled inwards, all the resulting planets and comets would rotate and orbit in the same direction. That's prograde. But Venus and Uranus rotate in the opposite direction, called retrograde. Lucy, you have some splaining to do within your own idiot fairy tale. Retrograde orbits and satellite moons Triton, Enenke, Carme, Pasiphae, Sinope, and Phoebe. There is no plausible solar origin of the fairy tale planets, and there is no plausible natural origin of the sun. Sun formation, one of my favorites. Hey, don't go that fast. We got Eva Novotny. Like I said, these are some hard pipe hitters. Listen to this. We're going to go over this twice. Once pristine and next with my comments. From Introduction to Stellar Atmospheres and Interiors, Oxford University Press. This was back in the day, 1973. The process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally to become a protostar is not known. In quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. The two principal factors inhibiting the formation of a protostar are that gas has a tendency to disperse before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation to be effective, and that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism must therefore be provided for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that self-gravitation may become effective, and the angular momentum must in some way be removed. You can't believe how fucking hilarious this is. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is him saying that at some point entropy changes direction.
It's worse than
I'm
it's worse than that.
I'm hearing these rebellious gas particles come back home, and the mum's gone to him. What have you been doing? Nothing. Nothing. You have, haven't you? You've been self-gravitating again, haven't you? Naughty little monkeys.
Not even monkey.
Listen to this guy knows the problem.
Girl.
Yeah, so he's anyway. Super chat.
Super chat, super trooper, super cell, super duper, super power.
Is he tonight? Roger Ledwell again.
Damn.
Me too, and I plan on keeping it there. Thank you, Roger.
I'm sorry, I overtalked it. What did he say?
He said, "Me too, and I plan on keeping it there."
Ah.
It's hard to see where it's from.
Like I
One other
said,
thing.
like I said, thanks, Roger. Appreciate it. It seems like he's a lone ranger out there this evening.
Oh, no, you think that, but super chat.
Super chat, super fluid, super glue, supernova, super salad, super computer.
Okay, Vlad on 0 degrees. Big Bang. Violation of the first law of thermodynamics. Enough said. Thanks, QE and panel, and shout out to Discord and YouTube. Here's Vlad.
Yeah, thanks, Vlad. You're right. I could have stopped right there, but that would have been a short show. So let's go over Eva Novotny again with my evaluation. We'll stop and start. We circle back. The process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally. I should have put something up there too. Gravitation. I put it down below. Gravitationally, there is no gravity. Even if there was, it wouldn't help her. To become a protostar is not known. The quantitative work, it has simply been assumed. You see, it has simply been assumed. You have quantitative work in the first statement, and then simply been assumed in the second. That's a paradox. It's an oxymoron. I should have highlighted that, but
it's an admission, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Confession.
It's a confession. It's a confession, but it's a paradox. You'd bypass it. I just caught this, by the way. I guess most people, yeah, you know what I'm saying. This little statement right here, I'll have to add to this after we're done. That's non sequitur.
As we're talking anyway. Super chat.
Another one. Superman, super chat, super salad, super computer, superintendent. I'm running out of supers.
Super molid.
Yeah, I got that. Go ahead.
And of course, if you ever in doubt, there's a super bugger. Retro Bill. Big Bang makes sense coming from Lemaitre, as it was the inventor of both the Jack in the Box and the can of snakes gag.
Yeah.
Retro.
Thanks, Retro. Good to see you.
Oh,
Haven't
mate.
seen Retro in a while. He usually shows up here on the BALLBUSTERS, though.
Wait.
What?
Super chat.
Another one.
Yeah.
I'm on a Superfly. I already said that one, though.
Okay, Roger Ledwell again. And to quote a great man, as far as you know. Thank you, Roger. Back to the present.
You can always go with superhero.
All right, like I said, hey, appreciate the super chats, guys. Thank you very much. Right here, this in quantitative work. You see, in quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. This is nonsense. That statement's nonsense right there. The opening gamut. Let's move past that. The two principal.
There's more. There's more, because that is to also mug you off to imply that if we got to a density of 1,000 times more than that in the nebula, that self-gravitation might start occurring.
We're going to get to that. So that it's been assumed. Yeah, but the first statement, in quantitative work, what the hell does that mean? I mean, we know what quantitative is, but that statement right there, again, you don't assume anything. Quantitative stuff is quantitative. There's no assumptions, is what I'm trying to say. But I digress. This gets really good. Hold on to your hats. The two principal factors inhibiting. So here's the self-admission, right? The two principal factors inhibiting. I like how they call them principal factors. inhibiting the formation of a protostar are that gas has a tendency to disperse. Yeah, that's a second law of thermodynamics violation if they don't. Before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation. So I said, which gravity, Einsteinian or Newtonian, would that be, love? Neither. And neither would affect, even if they did exist, they wouldn't affect gas molecules. And I said, like I said, both debunked. This gets better. To be effective in that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism must therefore be provided. Yeah, some mechanism that directly violates the second law of thermodynamics must therefore be provided for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that self-gravitation that doesn't exist may become effective. Yeah, you like that? It gets way better, if you can believe it. And the angular momentum must in some way be removed. That is the funniest one to me. Maybe guys ain't getting it. They have to take angular momentum completely out. It's so friggin' stupid, man. I like that she did that. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say it's absurd as some of the other things we've heard from anti-flat earthers, like the second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth. It's along those lines, isn't it?
It's worse. Right? I didn't even get a bite.
That was it. Sorry, I didn't realise you were waiting for my interjection to get a mouthful of food in you.
I was hoping.
Well, no, that's all I had to add.
It does suggest also that this is impossible by its language. Angular momentum must in some way be removed. I ain't got a clue what way you do that because it's nonsense. It is kind of sarcastic, the language that's used. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Eva, she's a, like I said, she's a hard pipe hitter, boy. Now, why doesn't anyone know this? Of course, you guys know about the second law of thermodynamics and gravity. Duh. Right? But then the angular momentum, not only those two, but the angular momentum, they have to eliminate that. All right. Let's continue. Oh, so we're going back to Fred Hoyle from Cambridge, where microbes boldly went, new scientists. There is no reasonable astronomical scenario in which mineral grains in space clouds can condense. From Jeff, like I told you, these are hard pipe hitters. Jeffrey Burbridge, director, Kitt Peak National Observatory, in Science, by the way, the second most prestigious quote-unquote science journal in the entire friggin' world. If stars did not exist, it would be easy to prove that this is what we'd expect. I love Jeffrey. That is so
read that one again. That's good.
It is good. I love it. If stars did not exist, it would be easy to prove that that is what we expect. Yeah. You know why? Because you wouldn't expect them because of the second law of thermodynamics and fairy tale gravity. Not even speaking to angular momentum. I mean, Jeffrey's not a dumbass. From Abraham Loeb, Let There Be Light, in New Scientist, February 1998. Abraham Loeb of Harvard Center for Astrophysics. The truth is that we don't understand star formation at a fundamental level. That's some bullshit right there. You do yeah, the truth is, Abraham. See, I already went off on him. Go on, Moat! Right in the middle of my presentation. Yeah, this is a cop-out right here. This is bullshit from Abraham. Yeah, the truth is, Abraham, willful ignorance. You don't understand it because it directly violates the laws of quantum mechanics and the second law of thermodynamics. That's why he's playing stupid. We don't understand. No, we understand it ain't fucking happening. And so do you. You can piss me off. Like I said, so you've chosen to whistle past the graveyard and float a feigned argument from ignorance fallacy. That's what this is. With an implied argument to the future fallacy, that's what he's implying, wrapped around its incoherent ankles to keep your mind-numbing, just-so story fairy tale tales alive. Paul Davies shows up. Oh, he was a student of Fred Hoyle at Cambridge, by the way. Just want you to know. I think Fred was Professor Davies' thesis advisor, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not. Paul Davies, Universe in Reverse. Can time run backwards? What a title. The greatest puzzle is where all the order in the universe came from originally. How did the cosmos get wound up if the second law of thermodynamics predicts asymmetric unwinding toward disorder? That's right, Paul. It's a real puzzle. Is hydrogen bonding, sipping tea, and jogging in the rain unsolvable riddles? The really scary thing, most baltards never even look at these Formica deep hammer meet C4 fire scenarios. Just take their word for it without the least bit of due diligence or scrutiny, like the spinning ball fiasco, then mindlessly parrot this abject buffoonery. Tell us wrong with you baltard idiots. Any questions right there? We're gonna follow up with the sun, end it with the sun. Anything on this? It's pretty well done.
Sorry, I was off mute.
Go ahead.
I said no.
Okay. The sun, the standard model, whatever the hell that is, states the sun is more or less a nuclear reactor. Allegedly, it has an inner core temperature of 15 million Kelvin. So, it's the little diagram of their sun with the surface of the sun is the photosphere. A bit out is the chromosphere, and outside of that is the corona. So you got the core, radiative zone, the convection zone. You get the picture. From courtesy of Dr. Don Scott. Along the x-axis is the distance from the surface of the sun, and the y-axis is the temperature. This is very interesting, right? So on the surface of the sun, you got them over here at 10,000 Kelvin, then it starts dipping down right through the photosphere, and between the photosphere and the chromosphere, this is amazing. The temperature starts to increase. And once it gets to the corona, it goes friggin' parabolic. Somebody's got some splaining to do. See the problem?
That's the sweet spot.
What's that?
The sweet spot at the bonfire, isn't it? Too near, it's too hot. Just a little bit further away, it's perfect. A little bit further away, you're in flames.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. Like I said, see the problem? So the inner core temp of the sun is 15 million Kelvin. The outer surface of the sun, the photosphere, is approximately 5,800 Kelvin. On its way to and through the chromosphere, the temperature slowly rises, then goes parabolic. From 10,000 Kelvin to 500,000 Kelvin when nearing the corona, then 1 million Kelvin to 10 million Kelvin. I suppose the fairy tale pseudoscience priests collectively missed the lectures on the second law of thermodynamics. Heat really does flow up parabolic hills. This is tantamount to standing near a wood stove, then moving back 500 meters because it's too hot, then you spontaneously combust. You think that happens? Yeah, me neither. The end. Questions, comments, concerns?
Oh, if I could start with one point. Superchat.
Superchat, superstar, super salad, supercomputer, superfluids.
A lot of super chats tonight. Thank you, everybody. Hey, Roger Ledwell. That's how Bob finds the ISS. You take away angular momentum. Yeah, I can believe it.
Interesting.
You.
Questions, comments, concerns? I'm still waiting.
One more concern.
Superstar.
Another super chat. Oh my goodness. It's live tonight. Michael Jones. Supermassive, super duper, Superman. And then just to stay in theme, QA.
Oh, there's the one that I was going to use. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
Super chat.
Super chat, super trooper, supercharger, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I'll probably carry on from there then. Oh no, I read it all. Super trooper, supercharger, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Good stuff. Shout out to Ballbusters. Much love from Florida. And that's from Misfit FB850. Thank you very much. Another thing. Super chat.
Super chat, superfluid, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I'm going to need a sip of wine in a minute. My PC's freaked out. It's put up a warning over the super chat, which is from Retro Bill. Give me a second. Lemaitre was a few beads short of a rosary.
That's classic, man. You can always expect something like that from Retro Bill, man. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, guys. Very, very well done. You bead short of his rosary.
Well,
nice.
I could add something concerning the sun if you like, just to
go ahead.
add something to it. Well, what they claim the sun to be, they had to claim that it was yellow. They had to claim the sun was yellow because they claimed it was a French spectroscopist that claimed that he observed yellow helium plasma on the surface of the sun. And that's where the whole beginning of their claims concerning the composition of it comes from. But helium plasma isn't yellow, neither is hydrogen plasma, even though they claim that the sun is a mixture of helium and hydrogen plasma. None of them are yellow, and the sun is white anyway. And no matter what way you mix the actual colors of helium and hydrogen plasma together, you will never get yellow, orange, or red, and you certainly won't get white. It just goes to show how false every single thing they tell you about the sky is. And every star that they claim is in the sky, everything is every composition for every star that they're claiming is extrapolated out from that beginning point of pre-assuming that the sun is a star and it's made of hydrogen and helium and yellow helium plasma. It's like, wow, where do we find that? Because when I asked that question years ago, where would I find yellow helium plasma? I'm talking about the Google, like. Google kept on telling me, on the sun, on the sun, on the sun. So I can't find it in reality then. Do you know what I mean? So, they have to claim that certain things can only exist and exist in a place we can't go to and verify. But that's the only place that it exists. It's really, really, it's a real massive mess. I could add more to it, but I don't want to confuse things. But it's a massive mess.
So the place you can't go to confirm they exist, that's the only place where you can confirm if it exists or if it's real. Oh, that makes sense.
Confirm what?
Yeah.
Whatever Brian was talking about.
Yeah, you can't
Something about
confirm.
the sun.
Can't confirm any. All this is. Listen, this is like. We're on the level of like romper room stories and like Sesame Street fiascos. What I just went through, if you go through it real slow, you're gonna say, how in the world are they getting away with this? That's the question. And many people.
I think what you said earlier is true.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I'm just saying. I think what you said earlier is just the truth. Nobody looks into it.
But that's an indictment against people then. Because if this was happening right at the present moment, there's no way they'd be getting away with it. How'd they get away with everything? If it's romper room, well, what was there, a bunch of children back then?
Yeah, I don't know. Number one, they've Jedi mind tricked themselves into thinking that this is somehow science. This is not only nowhere in the galactic vicinity of natural science, but it's paradoxical and contradictory at every turn. Every single one. But nope, no one. You still hear Big Bang today. I hear people talking about the Big Bang like it's a loaf of bread. You tell me. Same thing with evolution. Well, hell, Big Bang's got more going for it. It's defined.
I was gonna say, I'd agree. If you were to ask the man on the street how did things begin, outside of those with religious people, your average punter would say, "Oh, the Big Bang is a point of been drilled, hasn't it? As the actual beginning,
yeah,
from your schooling." Even though you don't understand it, even though what it is, you parrot it mindlessly. Where did it all begin? Oh, the Big Bang.
Hey, Nathan, you still out there?
Yeah?
Yeah, could you take charge for a couple minutes? I'll be right back.
Sure.
Thanks.
Give us a reason, Nathan.
Reason to what, Neil?
How this got by every intellectual that was around at the time. Because it's baffling me how it got by everybody that's supposed to be so smart.
Right, are you implying that people were thick back then, unlike today?
No, I'm not. I'm actually thinking they were smarter back then. But how did they get away with something like that? Wasn't there anybody to stand up and say, hold on, wait a second? I guess not, because we're in heliocentrism, so I'm answering my own question, but it's out of frustration.
I'm just glad Betty's here to take up the slack that I'm not taking up. Well, let's do some calls to action, I guess. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Hope you're all enjoying your adequate, if not fantastic, descriptions of Lemaitre's Big Bang and the nonsense that goes along with it. Please share the show. Smash the super chat to support this channel. Brian.
Just answering Neil there. We don't know if there wasn't people around at the time calling him out. It's just that all we know is that we haven't heard of them. It depends on who the media favoured. Who was favoured. And if the people promoting things like the Big Bang were favoured, then that's who we're going to know about. I don't know who asked the question to recently, but I'll ask the question now again. Who was Einstein's biggest opponent? Most people couldn't tell you. I don't know myself, because I'm sure you had the biggest opponent. Kiwi could probably tell you, but by name. But who was he? Most people don't know. Only people would know about it or learn about it would be in higher levels of education. Most people wouldn't know who that would be. Yes, everyone knows who Einstein is. Do you know what I mean? Because he was promoted and favoured. It's like YouTube years ago.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, just the fact that that's behavior. I mean, that alone. How are eyebrows not raised? I mean, who the heck knows?
I know their audience. QE covered this. Like, people will not only not question it, they'll mindlessly parrot it. As long as it's drilled into them enough. And they've had what they believe to be knowledge drilled into them, therefore are perfectly at liberty to regurgitate that garbage without giving it a second thought. And they don't. And they know that they won't. That's why they do it.
I'm not talking about the people, the everyday people like me. I'm talking about the intellectuals that were there when they started punting this nonsense. There's got to be
Brian's
some.
saying. Yeah, that's what Brian's saying. That you wouldn't hear about the detractors.
Why not?
You know, when all's said and done, our names will not be remembered. The Simon Dans and the Dave McKeegans, they'll be remembered. They're the ones that are promoted up in the media. Therefore, their names will be remembered, as will not. Already the case now, Neil.
I'll give you an example, Neil, of current day, past 10 years. Gravitational waves. So people did poo-poo it, laugh at it, object to it. Academics, people alike, but now in 2024, and gravitational waves are spoken about as if they're real. Just move forwards and let's do calculations with it.
Hold on, we're contesting these things, though. We are here contesting everything. Where was they?
Saying we're not. I'm not saying we're not. I'm saying 10 years ago when it was first suggested, and people are laughing, saying, "Well, you spent 3 years realizing it was the microwave in the canteen that was putting your measurements out, and how the hell does this thing measure this thing that is not even is actually a fourth-dimensional theoretical construct? How are you measuring this with your big long arms?" Yeah, that even academic ridicule disappeared to the point that people can now cite today gravitational waves be kind of accepted and moved on as if it's part of that mainstream viewpoint. Why else are these big machines now being built if they don't exist, gravitational waves?
Yeah, like I say, we're fighting against it. And here, hey, Ed Bear, whatever you're saying, it doesn't faze me. I just see your name going across with my name on it. I'm not going to look. You got something to say, come in the live show and say something. Maybe you'll have it explained to you the 1,000th time and maybe you'll catch on.
Or don't.
The problem,
It's just as
the
good.
problem. Oh, sorry. I'm going to say the problem we have in the world is we have a lot of people who think they're grown-ups, but the truth is that most people never, or they think they're adults, I should say, but most people are only grown-ups. Most people are not adults. Adults look in, adults ask questions, adults investigate. Grown-ups just take what they're told and think that's what you do, that's what you say. I'm a grown-up, and that's what I'm going to say, and that's what I'm going to do, and that's it. That's the problem we have in the world. We have a lot of people who never became an adult. You know, they think that because you're paying the bills, that makes you an adult. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. It just makes you a grown-up. It doesn't make you an adult. It doesn't make you question anything. It doesn't. You know what I mean? That's the problem. We have loads and loads of people in the world who just go along with whatever narrative. And, you know, whatever they're told is science, they just accept it. Whatever they're told is true, they just accept it. And that's it. They don't go any further than that, unfortunately.
Right on. Why are we telling us the people haven't grown up? Why are we telling us that,
Sorry?
Brian? Why are we telling us that?
Because we have a lot of people in the world who consider themselves to be adults, who consider themselves to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of inquisitive and learned and all these kind of things. But most of them are just most of them are just parroters. They don't think for themselves. They don't, outside of their basics outside of in their basic surroundings, they don't think for themselves. You know, Einstein said it, so it must be true. This kind of attitude. You know, well, the scientists say it, so it must be true, or the pilot says it, so it must be true. You know, this kind of stuff, as opposed to actually investigating and finding out if it's true. That's what an adult does. They don't just take the words of other people. Whereas a grown-up just goes, yeah, I'll take that. That's what the scientists say. That's what the pilots say. That's what the surveyor says. That's what this person says. And that the news said, that's the truth, so it's the truth. That's what we have in the world. And that's why this kind of rubbish is so easily fed into the public because all it needs for that to happen is not just the big nonsense story that they know nobody will look into, but just full of paradoxes and contradictions, but the promotion from the media, the mainstream media, and there's no losing at that point. You can't lose at that point because your story is getting out there. Nobody, with the exception of a few stragglers like us, are going to investigate it, and the media are going to promote that story. So everywhere you go, I mean, who do you get to tell that it's nonsense to? Who gets to hear that? And if they do they even take it on board or listen? So that's the problem.
If you compare it to Christianity, what's going on with this nonsense in the church, you have a bunch of people, proclaiming that Earth is flat, and a spherical Earth does not line up with Scripture at all, but yet we're being resisted, and Danny Faulkner is being promoted, and when a pastor does come out to resist and have a debate with somebody, when push comes to shove, he gets thrown out of the church. So maybe that was happening in the secular world when this all transpired. I don't know.
Adam.
The Big Bang can.
Sorry, 1 second.
You're back.
One second.
You're back, QE. You're back in the chair.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, Superchat.
Superman. Go ahead, Adam.
What was the biggest super chat of the night? Got the lowest.
This one's for you, though.
No, that's why I'm about to ask you where those funds will be heading.
Go ahead, Adam.
Roger Ledwell for the Time Bandits Fund. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah. It's going to be spectacular when it's done.
Oh, you're going to get a more accurate map, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm not making that claim. I'd just like to say that.
You're already getting one.
Yeah.
I like that confidence, Brian. And I'm not saying it won't be. It could be more inaccurate. But it's more likely to be more accurate.
Well, if every other one is inaccurate, it won't be hard to beat him, will it?
It doesn't matter whether it's more or less accurate. It'll be the polls projection.
Hold on a second. If Brian and Adam are in it together, it's going to be awesome. Brian Adams.
And everything we do, Neil, we do it for you.
Go ahead, Nathan. I stepped all over you.
I had nothing really to add. It was just I find it interesting the mind view that people will have with a heliocentric and Big Bang outlook. If everything came from nothing, we're insignificant, right? There is no purpose for our lives,
and
really.
If you want to know, sorry, I thought you were finished, Nathan.
I was.
I'm just going to say just something Adam said there. Yeah, I am confident. He says, well, at least you're confident. Yeah, I am. Because I know that the other side of the story is the heap of rubbish. I don't have anything to be unconfident about. When you know the other side of the story is a heap of rubbish, you don't have to worry about it. I know that I can support what I do and what I say. I don't have to worry about anything after that. I know they can't support what they do and say. So, yeah, I am very confident, without even a second thought. No second guessing myself. No, maybe I'm wrong. None of that. Because you can't. How are you going to change things if you're going to go around second guessing yourself all the time? You can't. You have to be confident.
Well, I think it's going to be great. And Nathan will probably come in and steal it.
That it'll do. Well, how are you? How are things? The least that it'll do will cause our opposition a lot of bothers.
Why?
Sort of like what you're doing to Roofy now.
Rufy's plenty capable of tormenting himself. Or self-gravitating.
Why? Because it's the very thing they don't want to have happen or create it. It's the thing they don't want. Because that's another thing they can't ask us about then. It's the thing they don't want to have happen. It's the nightmare. They keep asking us about the nightmare because that's what they're most worried about. Where's your map? Where's your map? Where's your map? Yeah, why do they keep asking that? Because that's your biggest worry.
But why? Why are they worried about it? If all the existing maps and everything that we do is already dealt with flat, what help is them? What help is it to them if they get a map or not? They haven't got a globe map, and the origins are flat. So I don't see how maps are going to help anybody. I'm not trying to decry what you're doing, by the way. I'm just saying I'm not hankering after a map particularly.
You're one of these people. You say that now, and then you won't be able to stop talking about it in about 2 years' time.
Oh, I mean, it's going to have my name, so I won't be able to talk about it. But but seriously, I don't. We have got maps and charts, and the ones that they're actually using for navigating are generally built around, I don't know what you call them, like waypoints. It's the set markers in terms of how you're going to journey and what you're going to do on that journey, and you're going to hit certain points, and if you don't, you're going to get in trouble. It's not like your average airliner has in any way got the capability of exploration. Therefore, well, okay, yeah, they're following a chart and they're following their waypoints. What's going to change? Do you know what I mean? It's locked down anyway. The travel and how it's capable and what you could do as a mere mortal is fairly limited. I think when you get to the stages that you could do things like that, you end up doing an Elon Musk and having to fall in line with the bullshittery of the Western world heliocentric culture and the space narrative, rather than doing any actual real exploration. Elon Musk's not going to discover anything, is he? He's just falling in line with the space vacuum lie.
But
Are
it's
we
not
saying
about
Brian's
exploration.
going to sell out? Never.
Come again?
Are you saying Brian is going to sell out?
Huh?
Huh?
It's not about exploration, Nathan. It's about showing the world a map that's based on off a flat plane only, that's more correct than anything based off a globe. And you should be going, hey, this might bring a lot of subscribers my way. But you're not. You're going, whatever, I don't care, not really matters. They're going to be,
Well, says you.
anyway.
I have had three straight months of, what do you mean measured flat? Oh, well, I don't know if I would phrase it like that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but that's because you weren't given context. That you can say that, but you have to add context to it. You have to give some caveats. That's the problem. But
No
that's
problem
a
here.
separate issue. That's separate.
There's no issue. See what I mean? All I'm hearing is problems and issues. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No, you tried to turn that on me, pretty Andy. No, I'm saying
Brian,
that's a separate
don't let him
issue.
discourage you, Brian.
Sorry, Neil.
Don't let him discourage you. You make that
I
map.
won't. Yeah, I won't. It's just what's the point? What's the point? What's even the point in going anywhere? Sure, we could. Well, who cares? No, this is Nathan tonight. Whatever. Just another thing. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Yeah. What are you going to do with that? Nothing. You know what I mean? That's Nathan tonight. Then 3 months, 5 months later, the flat out map. He won't be able to stop telling all the borders about it.
What are you trying to say? I'm fickle.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. Go on, Nate. Sorry.
As soon as what's his name comes on, what's his name? Professor Phil, now we have a map. Eh?
I
Yeah, it's,
think you're
it's
probably
going to be
right.
something
What-
stick in their faces.
Once there's a bandwagon to jump on, I'll jump on it.
When
Yes,
you-
because you're fickle.
Wh-
Sorry.
When are you guys going to tighten this up?
And what if we're not making anything?
There, Brian's making it. He sent me some slides and stuff. When are you guys going to tighten this up? Roughly, couple weeks.
Well, I have more coming. Yeah, more coming. Just for you could definitely do a QE live presentation on it. But there isn't much. It's more of a case of showing it, pointing out a few things, and saying we'll get back to you. Do you know what I mean? The problems it has are far less than the problems the globe has. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I took a quick glance at it. I could see what you did.
Yeah, you know, because I'm trying. You can see what's up. You can see what's going on there. You can see what's going on. You know what's funny? I was going to send them to Nathan, and I said to myself, "What's the point? He won't even look at." And now here we are tonight. And he says, "Yeah, what's the point? Who needs him?" Talk about knowing the right decision to make.
There will be a moment that is obviously appropriate for me to get involved, and I will be there at that moment.
Yeah, you sure will.
But the day after you mark out Lumeria on the map.
The Mary? That was something that didn't quite take hold, did it? The whole Atlantis idea. I see it occasionally surface in mainstream media or alternative truth realm. But I vaguely remember debate talking about it 10 years ago, and it didn't really come up since.
Yeah, Atlantis and Lemuria. Yeah, it's more legendary than anything else, you know. So you can only talk about it in them terms. Sorry.
As we're talking maps, where do we get the bullshit narrative of all the continental drift and tectonic plate movements? Where's that originate? Any ideas?
Globe.
But why? Why is the Ring of Fire globe related?
Because of the molten inner core.
Because of
No,
earthquakes.
it's not. That's not. No, that's not true.
And because of volcano. It is. You need a rhetoric, and because of fault lines. Yeah.
But that's nothing to do with the core. That's nothing to do with the core. The Ring of Fire is in their narrative down to the friction of the tectonic plates creating magma pools just below the first layer. That's nothing to do with the molten iron core.
First, you need tectonic plates. What are they?
Yeah.
But there's still nothing to do with the core.
I think if you look into it, Nathan, that they're everything to do with the core. You're just denying it.
No, they're not. They've got, in the heliocentric description, you've got all these different layers coming out from the core. And the very toppermost layer are the plates that they say rub against each other. And in so doing, the friction creates these little tiny pools just below the crust that create our volcanoes. And the fault lines are the Ring of Fire, where all the volcanoes are. But they're purely down to tectonic friction, as opposed to the molten iron core. There's nothing in the narrative for the volcanoes that in any way connects to the core. There isn't. You show it me if you think there is.
But see, you're missing it. You know the way people are told gravity is a force of attraction between claimed masses, and then they reach higher levels of education, they're told, no, gravity is just an apparent effect. You know, it's the curvature of space-time by mass that gives us the apparent effect of gravity, right? Blah, 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 right? This is the same thing. It's like everyone goes, oh, gravity is this thing, right? Oh, molten iron core equals tectonic plates equals earthquakes, right? They're connecting, right, loosely some rubbish thing that they have within their paradigm to real-world events, which is earthquakes and earth movements and tremors. But you don't find out unless you look into it that there's no real connection there at all. Do you understand what I mean? The
That's what
same
I'm
way
saying,
you
there's
don't
no
find
connection.
out that gravity's not a force until you actually look into it.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you're saying that the anti-flat Earth idea is that there's some connection, I'll agree. Your average normie thinks that the molten iron core is somehow connected to volcanoes. Then it isn't, even in their own rhetoric.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what their official.
Sorry, buddy. That's a prime example. Volcanoes, hot, lava, molten iron core. How the heck don't they go together?
So they're not connected.
Yeah. Yeah, but as I said, it's another one of those situations where a lot of people who were grown-ups just powered out the rubbish they were told. You know, when they were in school, I was taught in school that the molten iron core is the reason for volcanoes and earthquakes. That's what I was taught in school. No, it's not, but that's what they taught us, and that's what I'm sure most other people were taught at the same education level, which is the education level most people don't go past. You know, even though I left very early, most people don't go even much further than me, really. So they go, yeah, that creates that, problem solved. Do you know what I mean? But then they find out on Discovery Channel or the National Geographic Channel that it's actually not that, it's actually something else. Oh, very good. So the molten iron core doesn't create these things. All right, so we have these things and the molten iron core, and they're separate from each other. Great. No, we just don't have a molten iron core. And all the rest of our story is rubbish. But we do have earthquakes.
Hey, Brian, I know
Before
Christians.
we go on, guys, before just hold one sec. Just for a minute. Wait. Superchat.
Supernatural, Super Mario, Super Glue, Supernova.
Roger Leadwell again. Shout out to Neptune and Dubai. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
Are they done?
Yeah.
I know Christians that'll tell you that the molten iron core is the pit of hell.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Also useful for acquisition of angle measurements, apparently. But you can call them measurements then. I mean, it's all cool to call them measurements when they're in the center of Earth and hell. As soon as you point out that those measurements are actually taking place on a flat Earth, suddenly everyone's got an issue with you.
Even flat earthers.
Yeah, I know, it's mad, isn't it? I'm glad we all had a moment to reflect on that. Earth is measured flat.
I was just thinking, like, molten iron core, hot, really hot. Hell, hot, really hot. That's the proof.
It's hot when you go down deep. When they dug the Kohler deep borehole, one of the things they found after whatever it was, 20 years of digging, when they got down to a certain depth, whatever it is, almost 8 miles, rock didn't behave like rock anymore. It was more like chewing gum, or plastic. At whatever it was, 150 C. Temperatures down at the bottom where they'd got to and just couldn't drill anymore because they're trying to drill through toffee. I'm not suggesting that means we've got a molten iron core, but I'm just saying that's a matter of fact as far as I understand it from their studies and 20-year drill.
Yeah, nothing was as they expected. Everything was not. All the predictions, they had 4 main predictions, all of them failed. They were all completely wrong.
Yeah, I like the ad hoc explanations they gave for some of the stuff that they found. So they weren't expecting water beyond a certain depth, and then when they found it, like, well, the fundamental elements must be forging together to produce this water because of the pressures. You're like, well, okay, I mean, that's a nice ad hoc explanation for why you got it wrong. Why would you come up with an after-the-fact explanation? You got it wrong. You didn't expect to find water, and there it was.
That's That's always the answer, though, isn't it? Come up with another explanation as to why you're not wrong, just to strap on. And so you don't have to change your theory. Super chat.
Superman, superpower, supercat, just the activalidocious Superman.
Hey. Paraplegic coffee. I think they were smoking the big bong when they conjured the Big Bang. Job well done. Thank you, Paraplegic coffee.
Thank you, sir.
Not find it fascinating though, in regards to that dig. You know, when you read some of the descriptions of what was happening to the drill bits at those temperatures, you can understand. What was more fascinating was the fact that it's almost like dealing with a living organism that's reproducing itself as you try and cut into it. So they're getting to a point where they go through this like toffee-like substance. When they pull the knackered, almost immediately, drill bit out and then go back to drill, they're at the same level. They're not achieving anything. They're literally achieving nothing. But whereas they're trying to go into this like toffee-ish, I don't know what words. I can't remember some of the words they used to describe it. One of the descriptions was it was like plastic, like trying to drill through plastic. You know, it gets hot and gets mushy, and then it reforms as plastic. You're like, what's going on? We can't go any further than this. That's why they gave up. They just literally could not go any further into the earth. Like, well, is that expected behaviour? Is that what you were expecting to happen? Well, obviously not, but you know, it does kind of raise an eyebrow of how little we understand about what the world's doing beneath our feet. We have no idea. Some of that stuff is just a bit absent in recent years from the flat earth subject. So as much as I now cry and moan about the Feast of Nonsense, there were certain aspects of things that were contained with it that offered the same fascination levels as the Discovery Channel shows that Brian was just talking about. So you can hold an individual's fascination when you're talking about the molten iron core, or maybe the story of Theia and its production in a heliocentric world. But by the same token, when you've got early people who've come to flat Earth, they'll remember certain subject matters like Star in a Jar or the Kola borehole that were very much discussed as part of this subject. And, you know, finding out how little we understood about the ocean, for example, was also quite prevalent, and people were talking about it. I remember very distinctly a submarine going down and finding this lagoon or this crevasse or whatever you want to call it, this like deep pit where they're on the edge of what seems like a cliff that goes further into the depths. When they try and go into this what looks like water, it's a more solid substance that they just can't penetrate with their submarine. They can see down and they can see that it extends further and it's not rock. It's a substance that, to my knowledge, nobody's ever given any explanation to me about. They've just shown it on this submarine footage that I watched about 10 years ago when first coming into this subject. Certainly not something I was seeking out. It was something that flat earthers had gone, isn't this interesting? Have a look at this. And you go, well, fast forward to modern times and we're a lot more matter of fact about stuff. Which is why my nonchalant nature when Brian's talking about making maps. Like, from this subject, for 10 years of research, you get to the point where you go, well, now I appreciate how they're developed. And I'm in admiration of someone like Brian who goes, well, I can take that knowledge and expand it. Why not? It seems fairly straightforward. It just requires a bit of work. Good on you. But I reached the point where I go, well, what was I searching for when I was watching stuff about Star in a Jar? Trying to find out answers in regards to how the world actually operates. So you've got a firm handle on the world that you first thought you believed you lived in, and then you find out it was just a belief, and that's globe. And you get to the flat bit and go, well, how are all the maps functional? Flat. How are they flat? Well, with the stars. How are they being measured? Flat. Okay. At that point, I go, okay, well, that's good enough for me. You know, the people around me may expand their knowledge of mapping and give us more territorial accurate depictions on paper. In terms of the functionality of the known world currently, unless we have a massive paradigm change as opposed to the map, and again, I'm not trying to decry it, I don't see how the existing waypoints and such that I described earlier will ever have any need to change in terms of current travel. And I don't think anybody's going to get any opportunities through lack of wealth to expand the known territories in the way they were a few hundred years ago. I can't see that in our lifetime. It's too well locked down with things like the heliocentric religion, and the media's controlled well enough to stop us from jeopardising that, as we all well know. So where does that leave us? Well, for our own self-gratification, we can expand out our knowledge about the known territories and how they're mapped on paper. But I don't see that as necessarily a step forward in an expansion like we saw a few hundred years ago. That would require an entire paradigm change for the whole of the Western world. There to be enough intrigue, for there to be enough money to put into endeavours that might actually expand our known territories. Given that it seems that the control structure that we're under has the sole purpose of stopping that from happening, it's a lofty order to try and rectify that. And without the mainstream or the media that we are part of but suppressed within, I don't see how we have an opportunity to do that. As a little old us. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just in a pessimistic mood. There we go, that's my 2 pennyworth on why I'm a bit pessimistic with things like these maps. And
I agree with you in terms of ability to do
that's it, I'm done.
But I was right then. See, Brian, I was right. Not interested until Lemuria pops up. A little bit of real estate.
Yeah. Yeah, what Nathan is saying, just so everyone knows, Brian's not going to find me Atlantis, so what's the point? That's what.
That's why I didn't say Atlantis. That sunk. But Lemuria, there's still an option. You know what I mean?
Real estate's very, very expensive, isn't it? I learnt this one of my first jobs was an estate agent, or realtor, I think you guys in the States call it. And first day on the job, the guy, my manager, the real estate agency manager, gets out his little chart and shows from the 1700s through to in the year 2000 or thereabouts, a graph that showed how much land, property, was worth time versus money. And you can plot this upward graph that shows that the value goes up by more than double every 7 years. Now, don't get me wrong, there's little dips in there and there's bits that rise up beyond where they should be, and sometimes people buy at those peaks and then a year later they're in negative equity and crap in their pants. 3 years later it makes no difference. 5 years later they're into profit. And that repeats throughout history. That value of stuff you're building, you can just do the maths yourself on your own building if you've bought it and owned it a long time. You'll see that plotted 7-year path of the value. That's why people could look back on, or I could look back on my folks' property in the late 70s when they bought it for £3,000 and then sold it 15 years later for £150,000. Now that same property's worth £750,000, all within the span of my lifetime. Absolutely nuts, you might say. Nah, exactly the same as the trend has been for hundreds of years. Well, that's the path of everybody, isn't it? We're all on the same path where everybody always moans about how much more expensive houses are than they were when their grandparents bought them, and how much they don't have towards that versus what your old style man-only working woman in the house could have earned to buy the same property. Blah, blah, blah. You hear the same moans constantly. That trajectory can only be broken one way, because there was only one reason he gave me for that. This is the stage and this crescendo of the reasoning for me telling you that. I'm like, well, why is that? This is the one thing they're not making any more of. Land. Well, is that true? Maybe not. Well, if we can expand out the known world, then that trajectory suddenly ceases, doesn't it? You mean to say that there's more land that's not got a value because it's not got an owner? Probably has. It's probably got indigenous people that will just kick out like we did when we colonised everywhere else. But you know what I'm driving at. Yeah? It's the one thing they consider to be no more of. If we're wrapped up on a ball, there's no more land to find. That's it. Like in the Truman Show. They pull down the banner. It's all been discovered already. Why would you want to be an explorer? Well, I beg to differ. If we're not locked down and we're not on a ball, then there is an absolute, I don't want to say certainty because that's a bit extreme, But there's a very high likelihood, based on past experience, that we'll find more land. Yeah, that does intrigue me.
So my map, which will show things in their correct time zones, that's not really lighting a fire for you, is what you're saying.
Well, I'll tell you how it does light a fire for me. If we're going to expand out, when we had accurate maps of the Northern Territories, pre-equator, if you will, that is the stars that were then used to expand out into the Southern Territories. Therefore, in order to find your way back, once you've travelled out to these new lands and told of all the spices and minerals and beautiful ladies, once you've found your way back, that's possible or facilitated by having an accurate map of the existing territories. So if you've got navigation stars, once you're beyond the reach of Polaris, you can still use those stars to find your way home if you know where they're going to be at what time. Therefore, you've got to have an accurate depiction of the current territories, including the South, which we currently don't have, to be able to start saying, well, we can expand beyond that, because then we've got the accurate depictions of where everything's going to be at what time, with a good understanding of how those territories, the ones we've already got, actually exist on the maps. And once you've got that, then you can go further. So I would suggest that the convoluted gaggle screw of southern-based maps that we currently have presented to us, in some small way, precludes the expansion of the territories. Because you've got to have that depicted accurately with time, or the time-based latitude currently based system to actually exist and be expanded upon. If it's not accurate when you start moving out, then you're not going to find your way back.
Well, if you look at, like, one of the things that I'll be keeping off of my, I'm going to call it my map, right, though, right, would be, I'm not interested in showing, is Antarctica. Because if you look at the AE map, right, the one they use for, the United Nations map, they don't have Antarctica on it. They have a wreath, one of those Roman wreaths, the ones that you would show you wearing on their heads. You know, dignitaries would wear them on their heads. I can't remember the name of the wreaths and the purpose of them.
Laurel wreath.
Laurel
Isn't it?
wreaths, yeah.
Was it laurel?
So,
Laurel.
yes, and they don't have Antarctica. They have one of those instead, and one of those is the same. The exact one is depicted on. There's a tarot deck called the Coleman Smith tarot deck, and it's from a good bit back. It's not the oldest one, but it's from a good bit back. And on the world card, that laurel wreath is around the outside, not on the world card. It's a very specific part of the depiction on the card. So it's like, why are they putting a laurel wreath there on the UN map?
What does it signify? The laurel, as you said, it's worn by Crown of Caesar. It signifies imperial rule.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it?
It just says that the world's under imperial rule. Those are the territories that they signify with that laurel. That's what Adam's saying. And
United Nations.
That's how I'd read that. Okay.
Yeah, they're all in cahoots, and that's the territories that they possess and have to keep control of. For all we know, there's a whole other world with another United Nations equivalent under a different governance for a different people that we have never even encountered, and we don't want to get involved in because we don't want more conflict or whatever excuse is offered. But for all we know, what we call the world, currently described to your average ball-believing numpty as a sphere in a vacuum, we already know is that flat territory, currently on the UN map surrounded by a laurel wreath. Okay, beyond the laurel wreath, there might be a whole other map of worlds with a whole different governance that we have no idea about. If we tried to expand into, there'd be severe consequences. Now, I'm spinning a narrative of we're being constrained for our own good, just so people can envisage a scenario where there are other worlds in the same way as we have discovered other worlds, the new worlds, and then colonize them. That could almost certainly continue if it wasn't for these control structures that very specifically show you, here's our territories, they're ours. We control them. By control them, we mean control you. Because you're on them. You don't really own any land. Nobody owns any land. The landowners own land. People think that the land that they own is the land that they own, and it isn't.
Well, they also control time, and they mess with time. What basic time is, basic local time. They're changing that all the time. You know, we have daylight savings and political time zones, and China with just one time zone. All this crazy nonsense, right? It's just a complete confusion, a big confusion box. You know, so when people get a little bit of clarity, things stop being so complex. You know what I mean? When you start seeing things a little less complex, then you go, all right, so that's what it is. Now I know. Because really things are a lot more simplistic. It's just, it's being made complicated by those who need to confuse you.
Yeah, like astrology. They've taken the basic concept that was expanded out into the, what do they call it now? Astronomy. With heliocentrism at its heart. With the new sciences. They've all based their systems on what is now mocked. That's astrology. What is astrology? Well, it's just figuring out the patterns of the stars. That's it. That's really all it comes down to. It's been turned into some hokum pokum voodoo nonsense with predictions of the future. But all it is the tracking of the motion of those stars, and all of the basis of all of the heliocentric rhetorics have come from those observations in the first instance. Yeah, it's ridiculed and described as mumbo-jumbo, isn't it? Why? Well, because it's the most base form of what's actually going on in the stars. Those patterns have been tracked and documented. So why have we got Mystic Meg with a crystal ball? Well, you don't need the basics. You need our version with all our heliocentric nonsense slapped on top of it. Not the basics that we base that on. You don't need that. That's mumbo-jumbo.
Well, why wouldn't they ridicule astrology when astrology is working off of cycles? It just shows everything is a cycle. Everything in the sky is a cycle. Some cycles might be 50, 70, maybe 100, 200 years long, but the cycle is there. And the thing that was in this place 200 years ago is in this place again 200 years later, and in 200 years' time, it'll be back in this place again, in the sky. The point being is that everything in astrology is cycles. Now, heliocentrism cannot have cycles.
Right.
Those cycles
that's the reason we've got
can only be apparent. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say that's the reason why we've got navigation stars in the first place. I remember 10th Man asking or explaining that he'd asked the question of somebody who was publishing one of these books with the navigation stars in the almanac. And he was like, well, why does it only run up to 2025? Could it run up to a later date? And they're like, we could run it up to 5,000 if we wanted to. The patterns never change. Therefore, we're always going to know where the navigation star is going to be because we know the patterns now. So once you've got the patterns, you can then publish the almanac forevermore because you always know where they're going to be without exception. That's why they can publish the almanac in an as advanced form as they like or in a shortened form as like. Well, they're going to shorten it so they can keep publishing it, aren't they? But realistically, they could publish it with 1,000 years in the future of where those navigation stars are going to be above at what time. And they will be, because they're just following cycles.
Well, see, this is the thing, right? They want to claim that the cycles we observe are only apparent, that those cycles will change in 5, 6, 7,000 years, 25,000 years. It's like with
I was going to say they push the lengths out much further. Like, in 10,000 years, Polaris will be 1 degree off where it is now. In 10,000 years, it will. Oh yeah, most assuredly.
Yes, that's what they do. They take the things that are real. What they do is they take what's known and true, and they bring doubt into it. So then people doubt what they see and what they experience. And then once they bring doubt into this,
You know who did that recently? Sorry to cut you off,
Witsit.
because one of the Witsit did it. Witsit did exactly that, and I wonder. It frustrated me, and the people who were around us at the time only paid attention to me calling him boy when I was trying to shut him up, as opposed to the main point of contention, which was much more interesting. Not interesting because he was right, but interesting in terms of his motivation, because he's appealing to the notion that the angles to the stars may change as we advance our altitude capabilities. That's essentially what he's postulating. The whole principle of navigation is that just to give a quick summary of the discussion, the whole idea is that as you raise in altitude and you're measuring a star's angle, the angle to the star won't change. And because you're dealing with a parallel plane with the parallel sky that you're measuring, and the angle doesn't change at any altitude, GP position is going to be parallel with your position and the ground and the sky at all times, regardless of where you measure it from. We're always dealing with a square box, or an oblong box, if you will, and one side being the stars, the sky, one side being the floor, and the other side being the parallel zenith positions, yours and the GP position of the star. And with that principle in mind, we have navigated and mapped the entire world based on that principle. It holds true in all circumstances. Now, when we've contemplated why in the past, we've just chuckled, and Adam, to coin a phrase, said it's the majesty of the heavens. It's the only way you can describe it. The fact that it doesn't obey our ideas of geometric principles when measuring things that we do have heights to, like lighthouses, is a principle that has served us very nicely for navigation. Why isn't to be concerned with, because we're not trying to ascertain the height of stars, merely their positions on the ground at a given time, which we've tracked because of these cycles, and can know thousands of years into the future. Witsit's idea was to say, no, in the future, we may find that the angle to the stars does change as we raise in elevation.
Well, it's how do you measure the height of your ceiling? Let's say I'm standing here now and my ceiling is 8 foot, whatever. How do I measure the height to that? When I rise up, the ceiling rises with me. So it's always whatever, 3, 4 foot above my head. How do I measure it? Whenever I go up 1 foot, it's a foot higher. I go down 1 foot, it's a foot lower. If you see it that way, you know what I mean? If you view the sky that way, as you rise up, it appears to rise with you.
The
LiDAR on my
of,
LiDAR on my iPad, choose that.
the consequence of Witsit's claim is to ultimately state that if you go too high, you won't be able to navigate anymore.
In spite of the fact we do, and we've developed the system that way. Appeal to the future fallacy.
But the fact that really high jets still use this same, it's electronic, but they use this same principle to navigate, aerogate, whatever you would describe it. That's how they work as well, to get their position. There is no evidence, there is no adjustment. The angle from horizontal, the one that's parallel with the surface, stays the same irrespective of height. I don't understand the point of going to a land of, I suppose, appeal to the future fallacy, to then say, yeah, well, ultimately, if you get so high, you can't use the stars to navigate anymore.
But see, the problem with that
argument for me.
CQE said.
Drop
I keep
another
forgetting
one
it.
It's a special
Yeah, he
pleading
gave us a different fallacy.
No, it's a
Special pleading.
Yep.
Special pleading.
It's a hypothetical special pleading fallacy, which is a train wreck. Because your whole point was on that the stars do not obey our geometric principles. That's it. As soon as you state that, well, a helicopter or an airplane above us, let's say we're taking an elevation angle to Polaris at 45 degrees, and you got a plane above us, I don't care. I don't give a shit how high it is. It could be 2,000 feet high. If that thing doesn't change elevation, then your point is validated. End of story.
It's a fact. It shouldn't be up for debate. It
Right.
was with special pleading fallacies, and I don't know why. So, somebody at the end connected it to ether. They're like, no, he needs them to be a fixed height. That's why he's saying they're really far away. Like, well, give it me in meters. Well, I don't know, just really far.
That's why I
The
say it's
problem-
appeal to the future fallacy, because it's so far we can't get there now. That's the point of appeal that's been invoked. Well, how high? Well, higher than we can get right now. Yeah. So if we can get higher than we can get right now, i.e., in the future when we've got more technology, that's when it'll prove it. Is that? I know
Yeah,
there's
but
lots
that was his.
that is being invoked, QE, but is that not?
Yeah, that's an appeal to a future fallacy and a special pleading. Hypothetical special pleading fallacy. Yeah, simple as that.
I was only offering myself up for correction. So, but
Oh,
sorry, Brian. Go on.
We're going to be going over that on Tuesday, by the way.
Nice. I can't wait.
Yeah, we're going to take a timeout from Pastor Duffy. I think we all need a timeout from that. And we're going to substitute this in for it for the next couple weeks.
Well, the thing about it is this. What Whitsitter was trying to get everyone to take on board was that we should be concerned about making the statement that the celestial bodies don't adhere to our terrestrial geometry, in case at some point we find out they do. But why would we do that when we have no evidence of anything other than the contrary? We only have evidence that they don't adhere to it. So why would we be worried about what people might say in 100 years' time if it was found out that they do, if you go up high enough? Now, they don't and can't, because you'd have to break geometry to make happen what he's saying happen, right? But he's giving hypothetical if buts and maybes, and trying to give people fear of stating that the celestials don't adhere to our terrestrial geometry. In case, it's like, why are you bringing this fear position into it, into a position that is very obvious and doesn't need any argument? You know what I mean? What's the point? I have zero fear about making that statement because I can prove it all day, every day. If
What are you
someone
saying,
disproves it in the
Brian?
future, then they're going to be geniuses. Well,
You say no. At some point in the future, the stars may obey geometry.
What?
that's exactly what he was saying.
Yeah, special pleading. I used to hear it all the time listening to Paula's show when she'd go through Evo Tard's remarks. Lots of special pleading. Anyway. Right.
Is that it? You guys
Yeah.
all? Is that it? You guys all
Superchat.
tucking out?
Super chat.
Superpower, super mullet.
A while back, but it's from Roger again. One last thing. Share the show. Something I've not done, so I'll do now. But yeah, thank you, Roger.
Yeah, the
Share
show.
the show,
How
please.
long ago? What you? Are you shirking your responsibilities?
No, it was like appropriateness. I thought, well, I might save that because I thought it was going to come up to the end. Maybe it is the end. Maybe I did save it to the right moment, but I thought I'll save that. Just as a request.
Fair enough. So back to
Does
my
it
point.
have to be the end?
It doesn't have to be unless you're tuckered out.
No,
We
just
can carry on chit-chatting. I know you guys will happily chit-chat all evening.
Well, let's go back to the astrology point, because I think that wasn't because we kind of went talking about Whitsitt there and what he was arguing about during the week.
Super chat.
Super chat, super troopers, super something. Go ahead.
I did that before you got into this, Brian. Before I got accused of holding on to a super chat too long. Oh yeah, super chat. Theo Megaworthy. Peel ex ante. She was my aunt, but not tomorrow.
What?
Is that a Latin joke? That's a joke in Latin. It might
That
take
has
me
to
a
be a
minute.
joke. I'm not getting it. Thanks, AI. Appreciate it.
Back to you, Bri.
Well, I was just saying that no wonder they put down astrology so much when astrology is just pointing out that all these things in the sky are just cycles. They just take cycles. They don't make a claim about what they are. They might do these days only because of the input or influence of astronomy and heliocentrism, but in its origin, they never made claims that I'm aware of. It was, actual claims of their composition and different things like that. They might have given them some kind of spiritual claim, names or whatever. But in general, astrology just depict that everything is a cycle. So, of course, heliocentrism is going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, is it a cycle of the stars or is it a cycle of the rotation of the Earth?
See, there you go.
Well, on that, we started an hour early. We're at that time bandity point of the year again. Well, I don't know about you, Brian, Nathan, as well. It was like the clocks went back anyway this week. When the solstice hit, you talk about what's moving. To me, it's the sun was moving. The amount of daylight that has changed since the solstice was noticeable. Ordinarily, it's nearer. Yeah. Sorry, the equinox. Sorry. Ordinarily, it's a bit more separated, and our hours change. But to me, it was noticeable this year. The amount of extra daylight we've got since the equinox, and we've still got another hour to go. But it feels like the clocks were put back anyway. I don't know about you guys, but have you noticed how much daylight we've got already without the clocks being moved? Something noticeable, because it was two more weeks ago the Americans had their clocks adjusted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't notice anything. All I noticed is the angle change. I can tell. I can tell because when I go out and shoot, right, especially January and February, I'd have to cant my cap down, right, at a certain angle so it block the sun so it's not in my eye, and it's very noticeable now. I have to do a whole different cant of my hat. I just thought I'd share that.
Right, so now imagine knowing a lot more about that and not have it hidden with these savings times to hide the position of all the luminaries in the sky and all their different repetitive cycles. Different being the key, the sun being the one in this instance.
I know people want to jump in with other things, but I'm going to ask the question. I see your super chat out there. AI. We'll get to it here in a second. Can we get a straight story? Maybe I've missed it through the years. Did the stars move because the Earth rotates, but the sun and the quote unquote moon and planets they all move? Well, what the hell's moving? What's not?
Yeah, I can give a straight story on that.
Thanks.
The globe out rotates at the same sidereal rate as the main star field, right? So that's why the sun is stationary. The globe out is rotating at the same rate as the main star field. So the globe is not rotating at a solar rate, but a sidereal rate. The moon is orbiting the globe, but it's orbiting west to east, the same direction as the globe is rotating. So the moon is moving around the globe, the sun is stationary, and the stars are stationary. Only the moon and the globe Earth is moving in that paradigm.
Huh. In their paradigm.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Until you
strictly
incorporate
true.
retrograde motion of the planet.
It's not true. You can move out the axis to the great attractor, and then the stars are moving around that in the Milky Way.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but we're talking about the basic heliocentric system. Like you're dealing with a different directions and all that. Then
Okay,
I mean,
before
I think the sixth.
Before we get into this, this is interesting discussion. Adam.
Superchat.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Hey, Theo Megaworthy. And I think I did get a nod to this. I just wasn't up on the Latin, so respect for helping me out. Appeal ex ante. Before the event, otherwise known as appeal to the future, etc. Do simpler jokes?
Yes.
No, dude. Like I said, Theo, I appreciate it. So here's a simpler joke from him. Why did the chicken cross the road? He works for DigSafe.
DigSafe? That's AI. You're off the reservation. Well, you're on the reservation, but while you're on it, you're off it.
Chat.
Roger, super chatter today. Unbelievable. Go ahead, Adam.
What's your again? ISS. Great turkey shoot in the sky. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks, Roger. Go ahead, Brian. Finish up with what you were talking about.
Yeah, you see, they have to claim they had a choice, right? They couldn't choose to say that the Earth was rotating at a solar rate. So there's an exact 24 hours of a rotation because the sun has its cycle throughout the year, which means it puts it in a different place in the sky for everyone each day. So they can't do that. So they had to claim that the Earth, the globe Earth, is rotating at a sidereal rate, which is 23 hours. I think there's like less than 4 minutes of a difference between when the globe Earth does a full rotation and the point that would be a solar day or the start of a solar day, the end of one start to another kind of thing. So that's that couple of minute difference between sidereal and solar. In astrology, they when they say like the sun is in Capricorn or whatever, they're talking about the sun and the stars of Capricorn being in alignment or whatever. Let's just say in October the sun is in Libra, right? Around that time, around September, late September, early October, the sun is in Libra. So because what happens is that over the course of 12 months, like where all the stars of Libra were this, let's say on October the 10th, 6th, right? Last year, they will be in exactly the same place this year. This thing about them having these little changes, that doesn't happen. A lot of that stuff is nonsense. They don't do any of that. They're in exactly the same place. So the whole point of the globe rotating is so they can explain the sidereal rotation of the celestial stars in relation to the sun. And that's how they say that the globe does a full rotation a couple of minutes before what will be the end and the start of a new solar day. So that's how they explain that. You know, it's nonsense. I mean, they add in all kinds of nonsense, as I said. They try and add in one of the biggest jokes of the lot is they try and say that a year is 365 days, 5 hours and 28 minutes or some nonsense like that. No, it is not. Each day is an exact 24 hours. When you multiply that up by 365, that's what a full year is. The globe and heliocentrism need to add in little things mathematically that aren't actually there in reality. Another example of that is Polaris. They say Polaris has this little tiny movement that it's actually rotating around the North Geographic Pole. But the North Geographic Pole is the GP point of Polaris. And if you try to find any proof that Polaris is doing this, right, they'll send you videos that don't show Polaris doing this, and they'll give you mathematics that show that it does it via mathematics. And that's it. Even some of the almanacs have some corrections in there for Polaris for absolutely no reason. These are tiny corrections for no reason for something that Polaris is not doing. Do you know what I mean? These little things. Sorry?
Sorry, Brian. I thought you'd done that.
I just want to finish off before. Yeah, that these little things.
And then I'll pull back the super chat.
Yes, I'll be very quick. I've just finished. These little things are added in to take away the consistency of what they show in astrology, what they originally showed in astrology, which is the cycles. These little bits are added in, these little mathematical bits are added in to take away that consistency. To say, so they can then say, well, 25,000 years ago, it was Turbine or whatever it is, was the North Star. Do you know what I mean? This kind of rubbish. So it's all mathematical at that point. When they add in these little couple of hours here and a couple of minutes there, yet there's absolutely no evidence for this whatsoever. And the only evidence they can give you, it won't happen for 15,000 years. You know what I mean? So that's that. Thanks, Adam. But that's the basics of it.
Done. Right then. Anyway, super chat.
Super tramp, super power, super glue.
Okay. Yeah, super chat from Tony Whitcomb. Adam Meakin. I've noticed as well that the daylight is coming through my windows just after 6:15 a.m. considering it's latter March. I have no idea about that time of the evening.
Morning.
Yeah. No, it's evening for me. 6:15 a.m.
6:15 a.m.
Nighttime. That's nighttime. That's not morning. But yeah, I get the point. If you're looking at, I'm my ignorance. I'm only looking in the evening. We've got the same. I agree. Thanks, Tony. There's one bit I want to just address with Brian. The reason the almanac's reformulated every year is there is a slight disalignment. This precession of the equinox. That's not to say that this time next year it's not virtually identical, but it will be slightly different. Hence why we have the eras of Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius dawning. It's that slight other cycle that's on a 2,000 years per astrological calendar, a 24,000 year cycle of disalignment all the way around. These are the things that are in standard astrology, things that you'll see in the Mayan calendar as well. So this, and that's why the equinox can be produced, the ephemeris, sorry, can be predicted into the future because all these cycles repeat. They're shown in history and prehistory, this understanding, and they're still there. And like I say, as nuanced as they are to the point of the precession of the equinox. Now, that's not disagree with what Brian said with regards to this supposed movement of Polaris, because what they'll try to do is claim that back in the early Egyptian calendar, they've got a different North Star, the one that you can't see now. You know what I mean? Nonsense stuff like that. So they'll try and build that into their heliocentric paradigm, but that's not proven. But there are many calendars within the calendars.
You see, the problem is, Adam, is that let's just say they called Polaris a different name 5,000 years ago. Let's just say they found a different name for Polaris in Egypt or whatever, and then they go, see, we told you it was a different star. No, they just gave the same thing a different name. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
We don't know if it was always Polaris, things like that. But when it comes to a lot of these other things, what you're talking about there, you're talking about a paradigm shift. Let's just say from Pisces, which we're in now, into the age of Aquarius. That's what you're talking about, is it?
Yeah, and that's just where the star field is sitting at solstice, isn't it? So that signifies where the star field sits there. That, like I said, is a 24,000 year cycle. So if you look at when the Israelites are calling the pagans bull worshippers, that's because actually the star field then is sitting in the Horus era at solstice. That's how the star field is. So the ancients used that great calendar, a 2,000 year calendar as well, to define ages, epochs.
Well, I'm going to say something now, and you might correct me on it. But a lot of these things that you're saying, like as in the almanac, like I have never experienced a paradigm change from Pisces into Aquarius or Taurus into Pisces, I think it is, or whatever. I've never experienced any of that, so I don't know. What you're talking about there is a several thousand-year change, right? Now,
Yes.
these changes that you're talking about that they refresh the almanac with, like they're just saying are a cycle, right? You could be absolutely correct there, and I might be wrong to say this, and okay, if I'm wrong, I accept it. But could someone show me actual evidence for this? Because all I've ever seen are exact cycles. I don't see how the star field can be in a different position.
The evidence is what I cited earlier. That's the point of the slight adjustments for the ephemeris every year. Because it's that slight 24,000 year rotational cycle, which is why we are in the dawning of the age of Aquarius right now as we shift from Pisces into Aquarius. Yeah. Or at that point, it's that cycle that means the ephemeris from 2012 is out a little bit. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
you could still find land with it. Yeah, of course you could, because look how long it takes for a full rotation of that. So 5-10 years doesn't really matter, does it? You're still well within tolerable limits because of the 24,000 year single cycle for this. So between this year, last year and this year, your equipment is not accurate enough to detect the movement in that 1 year, won't be. But the fact that the ephemeris will make adjustments demonstrates it. It's there. That's the reason you don't just have one almanac that's applicable to every year.
That's the thing, you see. I'm going to maybe speak from ignorance here, but that's the thing that raises problems with me, because it's this little thing that you couldn't decipher from year to year. Yet I supposedly can't use an almanac from 25 years ago. When for Libra to be where it has to be in the sky at the start of October, then it has to be there in that place every year, regardless. So this little change, I'm 46 now, that little change would have changed Libra in the sky in October for me, because I'm born in October. But it doesn't change. It's in exactly the same place. Everything is exactly the same as 46 years ago. That's my point. I'm wondering, are these things that they're adding in, are they real cycles, or are they little heliocentric bits, mathematical bits that they're adding in, that they're saying there's a slight change in the cycle, when there actually isn't any change whatsoever?
So I want to give you, okay, so
yeah.
If we're looking at a 2,000 year cycle for 1/12 of the zodiacal movement, and that's 2,000 years to move 30 days. You've lived 46 years. That means you would have seen a 0.69 change in the day starfield position in your 46 years.
Nice.
Yeah, the problem, see, that is reeks of heliocentrism, because that's what they give you. They say
that's the 2,000 years.
No, Brian. Brian. He's saying it is discernible. Is what he's saying. It is discernible.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim it's not, because I don't know. I just have a massive amount of mistrust.
My proof it's discernible is that the ephemeris publishes itself every year based on these very small changes. Now, they are very small, but that might mean you're hitting rocks or not hitting rocks. Let's see. These small changes are relevant. 0.69 of a day. What's that? So that's over half a day. Think about that in terms of the position. These are. My maths might be wrong. Point. It might be slightly less than that. But the point I'm making is this is the point of the ephemeris coming out year after year. You wouldn't need to do it for 2012, 2013, 2014 and up to today if it didn't change. It's a very small change, and that is as shown in the heavens by what is the dominant zodiacal sign. What age are we in? Yeah, I said the Hebrews, yeah, came out of the age of Taurus, into the age of Aries, of the shepherds. That's what the Israelites were, for 2,000 years, and into the age of the fish. Yeah? Fisher king, and the fisher of men. And that age is coming to an end as we enter the age of Aquarius now. That's the predominant zodiacal sign. Yeah. As it's changed over that 6,000 years, just for those three to come in. Of course, you're not going to have noticed it in your 46 years.
Isn't it also the basis of the Antikythera? Hold on, isn't it the basis of the Antikythera mechanism?
Yeah, so that's great cog. That's the outer wheel.
Exactly. The gearing, the whole point of the very, very, very intricate and slow gearing is to enable them to predict that, or show through the mechanism of the cogs, that change over a very, very slow period. That's the whole point. You'd need to gear it right down in order to show such a slow change through the mechanism.
Well, look, maybe I'm speaking from ignorance then when I say that I'm cautious about it, because I know that Polaris is not doing what they say it does, and they have corrections for that in the almanac as well. So maybe I'm just ignorant. Maybe obviously Polaris is not doing what they're saying it does, even with those little stupid corrections, because all those corrections would do would give you the impression you're at the equator when you actually you were already at the equator, right? It's a stupid thing, right? It's a nonsense. But maybe that is maybe the other thing. Just say maybe what you're saying is a real thing. I just have my was it QB says heckles up. I'm just like I don't have trust yet in this, because I have never experienced a paradigm change, as I say, astrologically either. So
that's why I prefaced the first thing I said to separate those 2 points fundamentally. The precession of the equinox, yeah, is very different in terms of what's the zodiacal predominant sign, which is demonstrable over time. And I'd say the point of the ephemeris needing to be changed each year, not just be a perfectly standing document, to what they do, which is to claim that great cycle is something to do with repositioning of Polaris and a reassignment as to what is the North Star over time, to the point that you go back to 6,000 BC, that they would claim that there was a different star that was designated as the pole star. A kind of nonsense as well, because it changes the grid system again. But two distinctly different things. That is a heliocentric hijacking, the latter one, where you try to reassign the pole star based on your need to have this thing that doesn't change. This is the first one in terms of the change of the zodiac at the equinox is not a change. It's the great cog. It's there in throughout history and recognized. I'll say it again with the Mayan calendar. It's there. That's very separate to what I think got your hackles up, as you say.
Yeah, well, look, I know that you don't just go headlong into things and make claims without actually learning them. So I'm not going to go arguing with you. I'm actually going to go and learn about this because it's something I didn't ever learn about. So it's it's heliocentrism and my ignorance together have me mistrusting. Now, there's certain elements that I do, and I'm right to mistrust, like that nonsense with Polaris. And this nonsense about how it rotates, has a little rotation around the North Pole. That's a complete rubbish. But little things like that, and the changing of the North Star. So it's just, as I said, it's my experience with heliocentric nonsense and my ignorance mixed together. So I'm not going to make any stupid claims. I don't think you or Nathan or anyone else would be saying, no, it's this thing, it's this actual cycle, which there has to be, that cycle has to be there in astrology, because you're going from one phase or era into the next, Taurus, Pisces, Aquarius, blah, blah, blah. So that has to be there. I'm not saying that isn't there. I'm just saying that I've never experienced a change from one to the other, but it's such a long period of time, so I don't know what would happen. But I know that you wouldn't be saying that this is a thing if it wasn't a thing. So yeah. I'm not going to argue on it.
Hey, before it gets lost, hey, Super Mario, you got to read Retro Bills. It's a classic.
Super chat.
That's what I said. Super Mario.
Thank you, Retro Bill. After Lemaitre's big bag homily, I'm ready for Facepalm Sunday. Very good.
Just to speak to Brian before we get lost in this.
Yeah.
No, Brian, your degree of skepticism is perfectly balanced. You don't know it's the case. Therefore, you're not rejecting it out of hand, but you're saying, I'm not prepared to put my mark on this, having not qualified it and verified it myself personally. And given the durations that are being laid down, I don't think it's unreasonable for you to be skeptical of it.
Yeah,
that's what makes you what.
Mountain Smithy says the idea of precession predates heliocentrism.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
That doesn't mean Brian's not right to have a healthy degree of skepticism about it.
That's true.
Because, like you say, how do you know when you don't know that what they say about the movement of Polaris, total nonsense, is true, and that the precession isn't? You don't know till you look into it and find out, figure out the reasons why things like the ephemeris and therefore the almanac would change. Once you look into it.
Sorry, Nathan. And you're saying it's stupid for me to even question it in a way, because heliocentrism originates with Copernicus and Kepler. Kepler was a master astrologer, right? So that had to exist before heliocentrism. So I'm kind of stupid to be arguing with it. It's just that, as I said earlier, the point I said earlier, the world is full of grown-ups, but there isn't enough adults, where people just go, okay, then that's the truth. Do you know what I mean? And just accept things offhand, instead of being suspect and kind of going, I don't know if this person is telling me the truth, if they're living a fantasy, or if they're a liar, or if they've got it wrong. It's a lot, and so yeah, my skepticism is warranted, but there's certain things that maybe I shouldn't argue with, especially things like this, unless I've actually verified them, or unless I actually have some verifiable proof that I have something to argue about. So yeah, it's heliocentrism and ignorance all mixed into one. But as QE said, I can't remember who he said was from the chat. Yeah, of course it did, because heliocentrism started with Kepler, and Kepler was an astrologer before he ever came up with his amalgamation of the sun cycle into the Copernican solar model, or solar paradigm.
Yeah, it's hard to know. You don't know what you're wading through when you're wading through bullshit, and where it begins and ends. But yeah, you've got to have that degree of skepticism. Otherwise, you're just accepting things based on what feels right. Oh, well, I like the idea that Polaris doesn't move. I'll stick with that. Why? Have you checked? Why would you just accept it? Well, here's something that says otherwise. It says it moves in the heliocentric system. What are you going to do now? Which one are you going to accept? Oh, well, if heliocentrism says it moves, so fickle. It's like, no, check for yourself. Does it do it or doesn't it? I like your degree of skepticism.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, you have to know when not to be too skeptic about something, and know when the chances are, when like I know Adam and I know you and QE, and if you're going to say something is real, then because I know that you make a point of finding out whether it is or isn't before you're going to make the claim, then you're like me, you're going to want to know beforehand. So I don't want to be arguing ignorantly against people who I know verify things. So that would be stupid. But then again, you do have situations where you have people who are nuclear physicists who then will turn around and start telling you about space-time. It's like you're dealing with nuclear physics and then you start telling me about space-time. Do you know what I mean? Now, I can understand how they might make the connection there, but you have to be careful, don't you? Because you just don't know who's going to turn around and start telling you about space-time, right? After they've just shown you a nuclear reactor and how it works. You know what I mean? It's sometimes you have to be careful about who you're believing, because they're not everyone's trying to deceive you, but they just might take offhand. Yeah, space-time is real. You know, because they just presume it has to be real. Einstein was a genius. You know, this kind of pre-assumption that people have.
People don't want to accept their own ignorance. I haven't verified it, but it's not my field. Someone else in a different field that's a genius, in this case Einstein, has verified that we've got 4D bending space-time. Therefore it is so. I don't need to go into some extravagant investigation. It's not my field. Like lumpy gas in a vacuum was saying, he was talking about an engineering example where he's describing level and perpendicular with people when it comes to engineering, and they'll all accept those things. As soon as they expand out into a discussion about the world, oh yeah, level's definitely running parallel to the centre of the sphere. Like, but you understand this principle to make stuff. Yeah? So, beyond that, it's a sphere. I don't need to concern myself beyond the flatness and levelness that I deal with. Other than to say that it's not that way when I expand out my imagination to things that I don't investigate. And people will hold completely contradictory views quite easily. People can exist in cognitive dissonance without too much trouble. That's the bit that surprises me.
Yeah,
it doesn't destroy them mentally.
Well, I suppose heliocentrism is probably the greatest imagination model ever to exist. You know what I mean? Heliocentrism would have to be the greatest imagination model, because that's all you could call it. If you want to call it any kind of a model, you'd have to call it an imagination model, if that's even a term. Do you know what I mean? Because so many people will do a real world job like engineering or nuclear physicist or whatever, then turn around and start telling you about space-time or how level is not, it curves in the distance. It's like when they've just built a whole road system or something that's spanned 200 miles where where level has had to be horizontal for that whole 200 miles. They'll then try and tell you off out in the desert distance that level is curving. You know, people are crazy. You know, but I suppose that's what they just find it easy to do that. You know, it's like that's because they separate reality and they go into fantasy, but they don't realize they're going into fantasy. They think that's also a reality. They're not actually asking themselves, hang on, is this reality? And that's really what's happening in the world with people like us. We're asking, is this reality? And we're finding out it's not.
Superchat.
Roger Ledwell. School books and Pulp Fiction have a lot in common. Well said. And Brian, I had to go quiet for a bit there. I just did a couple of quick numbers, but I suppose if looking at an equatorial GP star, what's the ratio of nautical miles to land miles? It's times by 1.15?
1.1508 is the correct.
08. Okay. So, in your 46 years of existence, if we were looking at a star and we had its GP, it would have changed. That's quite funny. By 47.6 land miles, statute miles.
Right, that's not a whole lot of a distance if we're talking about. You're talking about in the azimuth.
I'm talking about, so if your almanac was 46 years out of date, i.e. the only one you had was the one that you had on your birthday, yeah? And using that, you would be 47.64312082886 statute miles out.
Yeah, the GP position would be that far out.
Yeah.
So where you think that if you think the GP's over Coventry, it's actually over London.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Watford.
Yeah. So the GP would be over. Yeah. So that's why it has to. Well, it makes sense why they have to renew them each year. But the thing is, they can give you a 10,000 year ephemeris if they wanted. They'd just be a massive book, but because they know it's going to go back to this what it was before.
It wouldn't have to be 10,000 years. What's the full length of the cycle? Is it 25,000 years?
Yeah, 24,000 just on. Well, it is 24,000. Byron will know that number. It's just
So
over a mile a year.
Book. The point is that would be the full length of the book, Brian. That would be it, because then you're back to zero. You just repeat.
Yes.
You only need one book. It would be 24,000 years long.
Yeah, that makes sense. It actually makes a lot of sense there now, to be honest with you. I am going to look into it because I need to learn a bit more about it, but it makes sense.
Does it actually make any difference? Moving into the age of Aquarius? Who cares? Seriously, what difference does it make?
It makes a big difference in navigation.
Yes, it does.
In navigation, it does. In terms of the positions of beyond the positions of GPs in the almanac, what does it? Should I feel more enlightened as we move into the age of Aquarius? Do you see what I'm asking?
I'm the man that says, "What if we're lost at sea?" Yes, you should.
Yeah,
Keep
exactly.
Up-to-date ephemeris. Other
Nathan,
than that, probably don't worry about it.
No, that's not what I'm asking at all, and you know it.
Spiritually, no.
No, spiritually, me in the middle of the UK, not travelling anywhere, I shouldn't feel like I'm more privileged to be moving into the age of Aquarius because of the enlightenment that will follow in this time. No.
It's not your year anyway.
Maybe.
It's not my year.
It's not your year, Nathan Oakley.
I think it's quite a while away. Yeah, it's like 50 years or something, the Aquarius. I'll check it out.
My point is that these positions, as minute as their changes may be, I don't feel beyond the navigation usefulness of the stars and their angle measurements and their GP positions at given times will in any way affect anybody. The mumbo-jumbo of what astrologic or astrology has been turned into would give people the impression that understanding what's moving into what and when it's going to happen is somehow going to have some bearing on whether or not you'll meet a tall, dark stranger tomorrow. And it isn't. It's nonsense. Just understanding how these patterns work. That's it. And in terms of when we're talking about arterial days and globe earth turnings, what should you take from that? Well, you can track how the day progresses by watching the sun, because that's what's dictating what the day is. Not some calendar. But there we go. That's how people, I would assume, at some point in our history, actually observed their lives. And you can look to farming and various other things where they do very much follow these patterns because they're critically important to growing stuff. We generally don't, though. Your average Western world guy who's got a phone in front of him doesn't care. And maybe we shouldn't, but I think that if we did actually concern ourselves with how the patterns in the sky actually operate, we might lead better lives for it. That is to say, we would adhere to better patterns in our own lives and our own behaviour, as opposed to structured and rigid days with time slots that fit working days into them. Because we've been trained to do that and behave that way in schools, as opposed to through natural means of just existing with the surroundings dictating the way we can behave and the things that we can do. For example, whether or not it's light. That's quite useful to know and adhere to. Yet we don't do that, do we? We work at weird hours, regardless of if it's winter or summer. And, in many ways, I think that that's a bad way to be, a bad way to live. But like I say, it's been turned into...
What's his name was warning against it. The Unabomber guy.
Fill us in, Neil. I don't know if the manifesto of the Unabomber Should I?
Well, he said the industrial age would destroy us.
It's very
Fitting into
general,
these
isn't
work
it?
schedules like zombies, right? Instead of harvesting our own crops, instead of farming and following the patterns of the stars, like you say, and the moon, maybe getting off the freaking solar calendar. Yeah, I think we would be living better lives.
Yeah. There we go. But we're not, are we? We've got calendars and we've got time schedules and we've got time zones and we've got jiggery pokery and gerrymandering with the lines that don't mean anything.
All right, you guys tuckered
One
out
day.
yet?
It looks like it.
No, we're slaves in the matrix. I wanna be unplugged.
There is no unplugging. There's only unplugging from the control structures. You can do that to whatever extent you choose to, Neil. Start watching sports.
There's a bit of scripture, Neil. Just be
Whoa,
not of this
what did
world.
I hear?
Start detaching from the control structures. The chains that you want to unshackle yourself from are just the chains that you can see all around you. They're not invisible chains. Yeah, the TV is just another control structure. It's feeding you their narratives, their media. The same could, I hate to say it, the same is true of YouTube. Regardless of the people being the information, you would assume that meant that you get privy to all of that information. But as we know from search and algorithm methodology, you can have the people who are saying what you want them to say to be meeting the people's ears. Therefore, detaching yourself from those structures, if you want to feel free, is how you feel free. You just sever the shackles and chains that are very obvious once you know what controls you. And that's all we talk about all day long, isn't it, Neil? I mean, you homeschool your sacrilegious heliocentric children and all that, so that's good.
Yes, I'm driving, so it's hard to hit the mute.
Well, recently, if you want to close up QB, I won't go into this.
Take us home, sir. Nathan, sir, take us home.
Okie dokie. With that, first and foremost, I'm going to say a huge, massive thank you to everybody on the BALLBUSTERS panel for making this BALLBUSTERS live show possible. But, of course, a massive thank you to all of you for tuning in, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, smashing QE, super chat, and all that good stuff. Also, of course, a massive thank you to our illustrious host, Quantum Eraser. I've been Nathan Oakley, and we will see you all in the next BALLBUSTERS.